included the library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The White House says President Trump retains confidence in his national security advisor, Mike Waltz. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the White House is downplaying a stunning revelation that a journalist was included in a group chat discussing U.S. military strike plans.
The national security advisor has been under increasing pressure since raising national security concerns over the incident. According to a report in The Atlantic, Waltz accidentally invited the media outlet's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, into a private group chat of top officials discussing U.S. strikes on the Houthis in Yemen. In a phone interview Tuesday with NBC News, President Trump described the situation as, quote, the only glitch in 2 months, and it turned out not to be a serious one. He added, Michael Waltz has learned a lesson, and he's a good man. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Meanwhile, NPR has learned staffers at the Pentagon received an email about a week ago. The email warned Pentagon staffers about a vulnerability in the messaging app Signal. This was the one used by the Trump officials to discuss the military information. A note, NPR CEO Catherine Mayer is on the board of the Signal Foundation. The wife of Vice President Vance is to visit Greenland this week. Mrs. Vance will be joined by Trump administration officials on a trip that is seen as fraught. President Trump has repeatedly said the U.S. will take over Greenland, but NPR's Deepa Shivaram says Greenland is a territory of Denmark.
In an interview with a Greenlandic newspaper over the weekend, the Prime Minister of Greenland said that the visit from members of the Trump administration was very aggressive. He said that Greenland has to face the seriousness of the situation of the U.S. wanting to annex them. Now, Trump, for his part, says this isn't a provocation. He says it's a purely friendly visit and claimed that the U.S. was invited to visit Greenland, though NPR is not able to confirm if there was an invite.
NPR's Deepa Shivaram reporting. The Kremlin says both the U.S. and Russia are analyzing the outcome of yesterday's talks between their delegations in Saudi Arabia. These stretched for 12 hours. They were focused on expanding U.S. ceasefire efforts in Ukraine. NPR's Charles Maines reports from Moscow.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the two sides held detailed negotiations, the contents of which would not be revealed to the public. Yet both Washington and Moscow acknowledged the talks focused on expanding a partial ceasefire on attacks on energy infrastructure to now include shipping in the Black Sea. In effect, it's an attempt to resuscitate a 2022 United Nations brokered agreement that tried to guarantee safe passage of Russian and Ukrainian grain and fertilizer shipments out to world markets. The deal later collapsed amid Kremlin complaints that sanctions restrictions prevented exports of Russian fertilizer, prompting speculation the White House is offering some form of sanctions relief this time around. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren has weighed in on the Trump administration group chat that discussed airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. This is the one where Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, reported that he was accidentally added to the group chat on Signal. Also on there were senior Trump administration officials, including Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Senator Warren took to X yesterday, posting that the situation is blatantly illegal and dangerous beyond belief. A number of Warren's fellow Democrats have called for a hearing to understand how something like this could have happened. A hearing is taking place right now, but this had been pre-planned before this bombshell dropped. Meanwhile, the Democratic reaction to the Atlantic report continues to pour in. Representative Seth Moulton has 2 words to describe national security officials' apparent accidental war plan leak, and those 2 words are incompetent and illegal. Moulton, a Marine veteran, spoke to Politico yesterday after the story broke and said that those 2 words, incompetent and illegal, would actually describe most of what the Trump-Musk administration is doing. His words. Democrats and national security experts have been responding with calls for leadership changes. Representative Catherine Clark slammed what she calls the insane level of incompetence that endangers your family and your national security, and she added, heads should roll. 2 days until opening day for the Red Sox. They start the season on the road in Texas. It's 48 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, For nearly a century, supporting efforts to promote a just, equitable, and sustainable society. More at mott.org. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Eastern Friday, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Members of the Skating Club of Boston are going to join us at noon. And at 1 o'clock, we're going to be joined by the Chancellor of UMass Boston. He's going to talk about academics in this time when the federal government is cracking down on academics, including those at UMass Boston. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. How are you?
I'm okay.
So we're starting the show with the group chats, national security threats that they are, apparently. You heard on both our local news and the national news of this Atlantic reporter, he's actually editor of the Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, who was added to a group messaging thread on the app Signal. You also just heard the Pentagon said don't use it, so the Pentagon used it, with high-level Trump national security officials discussing plans for an attack on Houthi rebels in Yemen. On March 15th, the attack happened, as discussed in the group chat, as witnessed by the Atlantic editor, Jeff Goldberg. It is a massive breach of protocol security, obviously very dangerous for those involved. Goldberg, by the way, did not even mention this publicly until after the attacks because he realized how serious it was. These types of conversations are traditionally held in person in very secluded rooms, and notably not with journalists present. But it got us thinking about the nature of all of our own group chats. Technology has changed so much, we don't need to be tied in a living room desktop computer to chat in real time with our friends. We take them everywhere we go. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970 about the big national story of the day, but also about the unwieldy elements of our modern communication style. We all probably have one group chat that gets a little out of control. What are the rules about adding people, blocking people, leaving the group yourself? Again, 877-301-8970. Group chats, including the national security chat, butt dials, emails sent to the wrong people, all fair game at 877-301-8970. You know, Henry on the news was mentioning, Seth Moulton and others saying, it's not only an indication of incompetence, this is the national security types, but illegality. The only thing he didn't mention was hypocrisy. Listen to this. This is from Caitlin Collins' show last night on CNN, where the exact same national security, the same national security people, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, you'll hear first, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, John Ratcliffe, head of the CIA, Michael Waltz, who's the National Security Advisor to Trump. Here's a compilation of their clips from days gone by criticizing Hillary Clinton doing similar sort of things, they suggest, with her email server.
If there was anyone other than Hillary Clinton, they would be in jail right now.
Nobody is above the law, not even Hillary Clinton, even though she thinks she is.
Mishandling classified information is still a violation of the Espionage Act.
When you have the Clinton emails, on top of the fact that the sitting president of the United States admitted he had documents in his garage, they didn't prosecute, they didn't go after these folks.
Hillary Clinton responded tonight with this. You have got to be kidding me.
877-301-8970. So we want your comments on both what happened among not between, among the national security officials, because there are more than two. I learned that from you.
That's right.
And we want to know your own. I mean, every group chat I'm on, let's be honest here without naming names, every group chat you're on, is there not at least one person you hate, like with a passion, and at least one person you don't trust?
They're very controversial. They're very controversial. It's very difficult to leave them, too.
Very difficult.
You can't do the Irish goodbye and sneak out the door. You know, they expect you to be paying attention to birthdays and wedding anniversaries and all these things on group chats. They are a menace unless you're planning your 4th of July plans, as a writer pointed out in his great yahoo.com piece.
877-301-8970. Now, Andy Borowitz, our favorite satirist, he spoke to the dilemma that the Secretary of Defense finds himself in. You know that he was credibly accused not only of sexual abuse, but of drinking to excess. So here's a little bit.
Being carried to his room.
Yes,
I
exactly.
Love that one.
Well, because he couldn't walk on his own, whatever. Here is what Borowitz has Hegseth allegedly saying. He has Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, saying, someone in my position should never drink and text, so I'm giving up texting. 877-301-8970. 301
You know what else?
897. No, I don't. What
Borowitz
do you say?
said that Hexas should attach a breathalyzer
To his-
to his cell phone
to his cell
so he
phone.
wouldn't continue
That's
to
great.
make these kind of errors. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, by the way, it is, for those, I don't want to get too deeply, yes, I do. I don't want to get too, yes, I do, deeply into the weeds here. So you have the White House incredibly admitting that, yes, this is authentic.
Right.
Then you have Hegseth said there was never any texting about national security,
right.
even though his bosses said it. And then my favorite, here is Trump at a press conference in the Roosevelt Room. There's this huge breach of national security. What do you think? Can anybody guess what Trump said? I don't know anything about it. Here is a reporter asking a question, and then the president of the United States. That would be Donald J. Trump. Here it is.
What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
with the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis?
Right.
Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
And not only we didn't have time to play it, he also was asked about Pete Hegseth, and he said, "Who?
Who? Don't know.
877-301-8997. Why were you even laughing?
You know what's not funny about this, but when Goldberg was talking about this, he said at first he thought it was some kind of spam thing that he was.
He didn't think it was real.
Yeah, I can't possibly be included on this group chat talking about this attack on the Houthis, and he was double checking, and he finally realized that it was true, and he heard and included all the back and forth among people like Hegseth saying, no matter what happens to this whole thing, we have to make sure that Biden failed is the overriding subject of this. We have to blame everything on Biden before that. And then you have J.D. Vance saying he just hated bailing out the Europeans once again. And then big talk about we don't want to do anything to the Saudi oil facilities. We want to make sure there's no problem with the Audi.
Who was the guy on
Saudi.
CNN last night who made the comment that not only is it outrageous that this got out, that they were this irresponsible and careless, but also this was a conversation like five guys would have at a bar, not a discussion about bombing and
you're supposed to go into these skiff
rooms.
Juliette Kayyem talks about these all the time, these safe rooms. I mean, they were just on this, this commercial app, this Signal thing, that, as you pointed out, the Pentagon itself warned people, Pentagon-wide email went out warning their people about not using this app.
You know what the head of the Pentagon said?
What?
I don't know anything about that. No one told me.
Yeah. So, but group chats in general, though, can be very, very upsetting. There's this, as I mentioned, this great piece in Yahoo by Emily Stewart talking about how she's there's this one person that's on this group chat for all these aspiring musicians and artists, and they're all supposed to critique each other's work, and she just hates it. She says they spend their time on the chat just rambling about their days and text about how much they support each other. It's the quintessential over-complimentary, masturbatory, everybody loves each other so much kind of space, and the fact is that the musicians are pretty bad, and they keep telling each other how good they are, even though they're pretty terrible.
Don't you feel invaded? By the way, a lot of people say if you don't like the group chat, then just don't click on it. Don't read. It's impossible not to.
Because most of them are family group chats, right? Where there's people, the cousins or the aunts and uncles,
or coworkers,
or the kids. Well, blast emails. That's another thing. I'm not a big fan of blast emails, especially when like somebody gets an award or somebody's retiring or something, and you get a blast email with like 40 of your coworkers on there, and everybody's answering the blast email, and then you get 40 more emails on this. I think you might just take the time to actually send
to the
an
individual.
Email to the individual. They're performative. Everybody wants to make sure everybody else is seeing. Yeah, impress the boss kind of thing. So.
By the way, and we ordinarily take calls in order, but for any of you, and I'm sure there are plenty of you, who are included inadvertently in group chats with national security officials, we'd like to talk to you first. So give us a buzz, 877-301-8970. Tiffany from Lynn texts, group texts are the herpes of communication. It's really bad at the start, then it peters out, then they always come back with a vengeance.
But we should just say, how crucial this was. Obviously, if this had been gotten into the wrong hands, then the pilots and the military people that were involved
would be a great personal risk.
Yes, could have been killed.
So the only person who behaved responsibly here is Jeffrey Goldberg.
Jeffrey Goldberg.
None of the national security officials on the
That's
text. Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor, who Trump, of course, trashed because he couldn't admit his own people were totally incompetent. He trashes Goldberg. And by the way, the Atlantic, deservedly, is a wildly successful magazine, and arguably one of the most important magazines in America.
It is owned by the widow of Steve Jobs.
It is.
She's got plenty of money. Steve Jobs, of course, of Apple. And they have hired a lot of people from the Washington Post who left the Washington Post. By the way, Goldberg called this last night a Mack truck size gap in their security.
Did you see Kelly in the Cars text? Pete Hegseth is the real DEI employee, drunk, entitled, and ignorant.
Well, that's the joke, you know. That's a big thing about we don't like this DEI because we have to promote people and hire people based on
exactly.
merit.
That's a great
Who
point.
thinks that Pete Hegseth is there on merit? And by the way, we got Tulsi Gabbard who's testifying today.
She was on the call.
She was on the call.
Yeah.
I mean, she's another one. And Witkoff was also on the call. He's one of these. I don't know what his title is. He was just over as the envoy to Russia.
Can I ask you a question?
Putin. What?
I know you're not a foreign policy expert, but you would find out, why wasn't Putin on the group chat? Why not just tell him directly rather than having to have him spy on it?
Witkoff was negotiating about Ukraine and Russia. And it's people that know these things, and I'm certainly not an expert on foreign affairs, Jim. No. But Witkoff is just totally seduced by Vladimir Putin.
Shocking.
Repeating all his talking points. I mean, we're kind of laughing stocks. Anyway, Jay in Newton, what do you think, Jay?
Hello, Jay. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hi.
I think a lot of things. I want the Dems to visualize what would happen if this was happening under Biden and the Republicans were in control. Like, in other words, if they had made the mistake. And I want them to amplify it by like 100 and just go totally crazy on this. Like, I want to hear about this 10 years from now. I want to hear about this, like, I want them to take this. Like, we haven't even scratched the surface. Number one, Joe Kent was on that call. He's like the undersecretary of Tulsi Gabbard. He's not been confirmed by anybody. Why is he on the call?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Wasn't he in Ukraine when this happened? Like, I think Putin has already been on this chat. Like, I don't even think he needs to be texted about any of this stuff.
You know, but Jay, can I speak to your first point? For those who think you're being a bit hyperbolic, we are still talking, the Republicans are still talking about Hillary Clinton's emails. They're still talking about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Right.
You are so right, Jay. They should use the Republican talking points on the other side as their model. You're totally right there.
Well, you played the sound. Pete Hegseth saying Hillary Clinton should be in jail right now. Marco Rubio saying Rubio is not above the law. They went on and on and on about this. And so they have done, I would argue, much worse.
Hey, Jay, do you have a final thought? I interrupted you there.
No sweat. Yeah, I think there should absolutely be criminal charges. Like, it shouldn't be about resignation or anything like that. Like, this is a travesty of justice. And I also think, like, talking about group chats and stuff like that kind of trivializes the magnitude of what's happening. Like, this is a huge, like, mishandling of our nation's security.
That is a fabulous call, and that's a fabulous call, Jay. Thanks for making it.
It is a fabulous call, but we've got Tulsi Gabbard, whom people think is in cahoots.
Is a Russian asset.
Is a Russian asset in cahoots with the head of Saudi Arabia. I mean, she's the head of intelligence. It's kind of like a band of misfits. And somebody said it's like the bar scene from Star Wars.
You know, Jay, the last point that Jay made a lot of good points. His last point, which is really important, is this is huge.
It is huge.
And the danger, if it had Goldberg or someone who wasn't responsible with the information like him gotten a hold of it, as you said before.
You'd have dead Americans.
Exactly. And dead other allies. And I ask the same question I ask you all the time. Is there one MAGA supporter out there who said this is the final straw? I would say no. I mean, if there is, by the way, if you're generally a Trump supporter and find this to be a text too far, we would really love to hear from you at 877-301-8970. And we also want to hear about your personal group chat experiences and how they've gone wrong or right, if you're really into it.
You know, Pete Buttigieg was on TV, and he's been in the papers and stuff talking about, he spent 7 years in Navy intelligence, and he was talking about the procedures you go through in the military to learn what to do and not do involving classified information, the skiffs, etc. And he said this was a level, what did he call it? The highest level of F-up imaginable, meaning it wasn't just a small mistake, it was a huge mistake. And you're right, but in the age of Trump, as we know, you can go out and shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and that's okay for whatever reason that is. Denise from Rhode Island, thank you for calling.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, I'm afraid that Joe or I'm sorry, if it was Joe or Jim that just called, pretty much
Jay.
said everything I had.
Say it again. Say it again.
We had everything. Just enough is enough.
Well, apparently it's not. It's not. And by the way, Denise, before you do say what he said, but maybe differently, is as long as Donald Trump says, I don't know anything about this, and they blame the Atlantic, I assume that virtually every person who supports Donald Trump is saying, if they know anything about it, Donald Trump didn't even know anything about it, and the problem is not the national security apparatus. The problem is that horrible reporter from that failing magazine, The Atlantic. I mean, if he says it, they repeat it. I mean, there's nothing. So go ahead.
I understand that. So the excuse me for interrupting you. So the Democrats have got to get on this. They've got to get on it. I mean, we do need criminal charges brought. Heads have to roll. I mean,
who's going to, hey, Denise, who exactly is going to bring the criminal charges? Pam Bondi, who's concerned that scratching a Tesla is domestic terrorism? I mean, there's no, just like Marjorie yesterday, what were you talking about?
The Republicans are in charge.
What were you talking about yesterday when you said the ethics inspector general who would look into this was fired by Trump, so there's nobody look into it.
The scandal at the Easter egg roll.
All right, the branding, the selling of corporate sponsorships. No one can look into that, even though it's arguably unethical.
The suspicion is that Trump is going to pocket the money on this whole deal.
We don't know. But even if he doesn't, there are ethical issues.
Yes.
And Denise, the answer to your thing is there's nobody to prosecute because the Justice Department is no longer an independent entity, as it has always been, but rather they're Donald Trump's private law firm. So I agree with you in principle, but the reality is a different story. Denise, thanks for the call.
You know, somebody just texted, and I can't find it now, but pointed out that the Trump administration wants to polygraph all these people to see who's leaking to the media.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what they're worried about, leaks to the media, and maybe they should be polygraphing people over at the Pentagon and involved in this group chat to see who did what. But that's what their concern is.
Did you see Jeffrey Goldberg on CNN last night?
Yes.
'Cause I was asleep.
He was great.
Did he explain how he thinks he ended up on the group chat to begin with?
He said, I have no idea. I kept thinking JG. Maybe they mistook me for somebody else. He's thinking of all the JGs he knows in government.
Oh, I see.
And then he made a joke about how maybe they're trying to reach Jeff Goldblum, you know, the tall
Fly.
The Fly. Yeah, and he said he has no idea, but obviously he's a great patriot because he was concerned that this might get out, and so he did not disclose anything involved in the war plans. He just disclosed the chat, like about how Kexx said no matter what happened, Biden has to be blamed for failing. This is all Biden's fault. This is all Biden's fault. That was Pete Hexx's big thing.
As we speak, you're mentioning Tulsi Gabbard is testifying at a congressional hearing that was scheduled before, even though it's coming up. John Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, Kash Patel, the head of the FBI. Do you know what the one thing they've had in common is? They have all said they don't know who Donald Trump is. So, I mean,
I don't know.
Oh my God!
You know, we're in big trouble here.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Let's go to Meg in Bellrica. Hi, Meg.
Hey, Meg.
Hi there. It's Meg from Organizing by Meg.
Oh, hi, Meg.
Hi.
Yes. Glad to be a second-time caller.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, my group chat beef is not related to all the political stuff going on.
It's okay.
However, apparently recently with an upgrade, I think probably to Apple phones, if you start a group chat that has both iPhones and Androids on it, the chat does not remain in the same thread. It all goes to each person individually. And it can wreak havoc on a group chat because all of a sudden you're getting messages from people you don't know who they are or what it's related to. So I've been on a couple group chats lately, and then all of a sudden you're getting these individual messages like, hi, yes, sounds great. All right, here we go. And I'm like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
What do you do about
true.
that? Do you respond or you ignore in the hopes that keeping your head down will work?
Yeah, usually I ignore it unless I figure out what the group chat is regarding. But I don't know how we complain about it. Like, does everybody write to Apple or say what was
I would write to Tim Cook. I think you'll get a response pretty rapidly. That's what I would do there, Meg. Meg, thanks for the call.
A lot of people don't like this. We have a text from somebody who says, I was on a group chat with my husband's family, siblings, spouses, his mother. I couldn't take it any longer. During the Super Bowl of 2019, I just left the chat, no explanation, removed myself, and found it quite exhilarating to leave without an explanation.
By the way, leaving is a really good feeling. I have to say, I'm so glad that texter said that. Deb from Westminster, speaking of texters, how do we know that the only person who inadvertently got the message was the editor at The Atlantic? How do we know the answer?
Because I think you see who's on the group chat.
Well, how did they not see who's on the group chat? Even you and I, who are technologically rather inept, when you're on a group chat, you can see either names or numbers.
Okay.
It occurred to none of these people that there was a number there that somebody didn't recognize? Nobody?
I don't know, but I don't have a lot of confidence in Pete Hegseth as the head of the Pentagon, or in, as people have pointed out over and over again, he's a weekend host on Fox News, and now he's running the Pentagon, and the two companies he ran before, small companies with just, a dozen people involved with him, he ran those into the ground. I mean, he's got a very unsuccessful record. Great in the military, did you well there, but in running a business, he's kind of
inept.
And then you had this Witkoff guy. I think he was a real estate developer, wasn't he?
He's a big dude. He's a billionaire.
Yeah, okay.
That's good enough.
So he made a lot of money, and he's
That's
buying everything that Putin says. Remember when George Bush said he saw into his soul and everybody ridiculed him? Yeah, and he deserved ridicule.
So here is an anonymous texter who answers Jeffrey Goldberg's question about who the other JGs could have been. Jerry Garcia, Judy Garland, John Wayne, not Gary, Gacy is the guy's name. That's close enough. And most likely Jennifer Garner. I think she's the only one that's alive. Is John Wayne Gacy alive?
I don't. He was the serial killer.
He was excused. Thank you, John.
Jennifer Garner does those great makeup commercials on
Then it
TV.
must be her,
and
I'm
of course,
sure.
she used to be married to Ben Affleck back in the day, remember?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's go to Oh, we have to take a break. We'll get back to phone calls in just a second. We have to take a quick break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And we're talking about how the guy that runs the Pentagon and all the high-level security people in Trump's administration are discussing war plans on an unsecure group chat. That's next. You're listening. I said that already. Boston Public Radio. We'll be right back.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, the HBO docuseries Celtic City chronicles the remarkable saga of the Boston Celtics, its fierce rivalries, defining moments, and the societal forces that have shaped the team's legacy. Rich Gotham, president of the Celtics, joins us. Then it's another blockbuster green franchise, Wicked. Writer Gregory Maguire talks about his latest book, which takes readers into Elphaba's early childhood. Tune in for that and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Explo. Explo's Boston area summer program lets middle schoolers be architects, lawyers, engineers, and more. Day and overnight options at explo.org/summer. General enrollment deadline April 1st. And Bridgewater State University, helping create jobs for Massachusetts and working to connect industry leaders to graduates. Elevating business in Boston and beyond. bridgew.edu/elevate.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live at the library. Streaming youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the national security group chat that ended up including Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief or whatever he is at The Atlantic, and the whole issue that flows from it, including the danger to our forces and others. And again, Goldberg didn't disclose this till after the fact. Trump knows nothing about it. Hegseth said it didn't happen. And by the way, we didn't list National Intelligence key person, that's what's her name, Tulsi Gabbard. National Security top person, Mike Walls.
Yep.
Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. John Ratcliffe, head of the CIA, and a few other people.
Yeah.
These are the top security people in the United States government. Now, a couple of people had some texts that are very sort of breaking news kind of thing.
Rusty from Malden. Oh no, Pete Hegseth just texted me the nuclear codes. They're Melania, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Don from D.C. texts. This guy named Pete keeps texting me and asking me why I didn't launch the Tomahawk missiles. Never heard of him, never met him, don't know who he is.
By the way,
and Azita points out
our colleague,
that Signal's being used probably because there's no paper trail by the government. And that's a great point because you're supposed to, by law, government communication is supposed to be archived. So the feeling is maybe they did this because this stuff on Signal will disappear. I think it's in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or something.
By either you or Azita, with all due respect.
Not fair?
They're archived in his bathroom in Mar-a-Lago. So why? Maybe it's not an ideal situation, but it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, Signal erases messages, some of them anyway. Okay.
Do you believe also, you know, even if you're one of these people, we don't know what's happening at this hearing. I assume our colleagues will tell us if something totally relevant happens. Would you think one of these people that we just mentioned, the top security people that have enough integrity to say, by the way, we really screwed up, it's not going to happen again, but they can't say that, even if they want to say that, because you can't say that when you work for Donald Trump. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, again, I don't mean to dump on Hegseth, but the stories about him, his wife is hiding in the closet to keep away from him, and he attacks this woman.
That's according to his mother, right?
His mother says he was about the worst person in the world, disgrace to women, and how she was embarrassed by him and all that. Then, of course, she turned around and said that wasn't true, and that he had to keep getting carried out of bar rooms because he was too drunk to walk back to his room. I mean, this guy is not it's a joke.
You don't think he's appropriate to be Secretary of Defense?
I do not think he's appropriate.
By the way, an anonymous texter said Pete Hegseth kept trying to add Paul Weiss to the group chat, but he's not responding. If you don't understand that, text yesterday, check yesterday's show out.
That will be in the Marjorie blooper reel.
I think it might forever. Yeah.
Paul Weiss is in fact deceased. Okay.
Let's go to
Keenan and Salem.
No, but actually, he's only been dead 70 years.
He's been dead 70 years. That's right. Exactly. I was a little slow.
Keenan, Salem, hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Excellent.
I'm calling just I wanted to highlight something. So I worked in the intelligence industry in the Navy for a couple of years, and it was the talking point. You played it a little bit when Hillary's email scandal was all huge. That if this were anybody else, they'd all be fired and arrested immediately. And where that was just a nonsense talking point for them, what they've done here is actually a crime. This is actually illegal. Discussing classified information in a non-classified setting is a genuine crime, and for good reason.
It's the Espionage Act, isn't it? A violation of the Espionage Act? That's what I read this morning.
Yes, which as well as reaffirmed by the Patriot Act and a few other post 9/11 legislations, because the concept of just, I guess, nonchalantly discussing classified information in a 21st century setting, leaves itself open for, as we see here, anyone. Anyone could be there.
Well, I'll say the same thing I said to the caller earlier, Keenan. You have more expertise than we do, but we agree with you. And unless you make a citizen's arrest, who's going to prosecute any of these people? It's obviously not going to be Trump's Justice Department. So the answer is nobody, right?
No, I mean, honestly, that is kind of the constitutional crisis period we're in right now.
Exactly
is that
right.
If the executive branch decides that they just don't want to pursue these things when their side engages in them, but they pursue when our side engages in them, then you're kind of screwed. You're kind of screwed on that. But the concept, even I guess a couple steps beyond that the Trump administration is certainly not prepping for, that no authoritarians ever prep for when they engage in this kind of childish behavior. Is the trickle-down effect that this is going to have on intelligence communities and the culture at large. That when I first joined the Navy, like when we popped into A school, all of our group text conversations and stuff were group text. Like my division had a division group text on Snapchat. All of these incoming intelligence officers and stuff they have carte blanche now to just kind of invite people, dismiss people, start group texts on Signal whenever they want.
Well, Keenan, let's pick the best example. How about Elon Musk? going to everything,
Oh, my God.
including getting briefed at the Pentagon, even though they deny it, of course, about war plans with China the other day. Keenan, an excellent call. Thanks for making it.
We should point out before we go that according to this reporting that's been all over the place, and this one is from Heather Cox Richardson, that on this chat, they were talking about operational details of the forthcoming strikes in Yemen, information about targets, information about the weapons the United States would be using, and the attack sequencing, all these details. And it's also been reported that this app, Signal, is not approved for national security use, and officials are supposed to either discuss military activity or sensitive compartmental information in a skiff that we talked about before. Now, Ratcliffe appears to me not to be telling the truth right now.
Head of the CIA. He's talking as we speak.
He's under oath right now in Congress, and he's saying that it's fine to be using Signal. I mean, he's just saying...
he is, but CIA is saying right now that he said it was not, of course not, about whether or not it was appropriate. That's the latest headline from CNN.
He's not saying Signal was loaded into my computer?
Well, what they're saying right now, it was not appropriate.
It's not appropriate. Okay.
It's not appropriate.
That's not the quote we're getting.
Well, I think he's basically saying it's either appropriate or it's not, is what is... I think he just wants to be sure that he's
saying either it's appropriate or it's not. It's almost like every time these people open their mouths, they're lying.
Well, I have to say, I feel weird saying, almost every day I say, well, this is the breaking point, this is that. I don't know why I got so upset yesterday. When Trump was playing dumb yesterday, that thing where he was saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. And the Atlantic is going out of business. I don't know what you're talking about. What's that about again? I mean, it's so offensive. It is, and the fact that this is a lying machine and it is bought it's incredible to me. And let me just say one last thing. It's sort of a Margaret Sullivan point that she makes brilliantly in her column, her piece almost every day. We're big CNN fans. There was a substitute host last night who referred to what Doge is doing as downsizing. I mean, that is just not right. That's, again, it's anticipatory or simultaneous obedience to Trump.
But
it is sick.
I always told you about the podcast I was listening to this morning about the power of...
New York Times?
Yes, about the power of the alternative world, the broadcasting, the Joe Rogan, the Theo Von... I forget what the name, his last name is, whatever it is. He's huge, millions and millions of people. And Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about what happened at USAID and saying, talking about how we don't have to worry about any starving children or anything like this. They were going after these weird programs involving trans animals or some crazy stuff. And Rogan, either because he doesn't know it or just doesn't want to correct the guy, just lets that go on. So you have millions of people hearing this, and you have a very small number of people believing the fact-based media. So it's a huge problem.
It is indeed.
For all of us. Anyway, we're moving on. And yes, I was reminded that not only is Paul Weiss dead, they're two separate people. So Paul is dead
and Weiss
is dead. Yeah. Thank you, whoever just sent that to me to remind me of that. Okay.
Thank you.
That'll be in the blooper reel. That's coming up. Okay. Up next, we're going to be talking to Trenni Casey from NBC Sports Boston. We're going to talk about the Celtics sale, Tiger Woods' new lady love, and this pig stare deal that apparently is coast to coast, a big sensation. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Across the globe, more and more drivers are buying EVs, and most of those cars are made in China, not here in the U.S., though.
What's the big deal? What's this thing about existential threat? There's no Chinese cars on the road here, but we're in a walled garden.
How China came to dominate the global market for electric vehicles. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Boston Ballet, presenting Winter Experience. This program of dancing is full of grace, athleticism, and artistry. On stage now through March 30th. Official tickets at bostonballet.org. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked /1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the second consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, stream at youtube.com/GBH News. Joined now by Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston, and a BPR contributor. Hi, Trenni.
Hi, guys.
Hey there.
Hello, Trenni Casey. So tell us about the sale of the Celtics.
Yes, so the Celtics have been sold to William Bill Chisholm. He is a native of Georgetown, Mass.
Yeah.
But has been living in California. He's a private equity guy. Kind of I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere. He was one of the 4 finalists who were listed. But I think a lot of people just assume that Steve Pagliuca, who was a minority owner alongside the Grossbeck family, sort of had a leg up, right? Like, this is a guy who's been there. He's always kind of played, at least publicly, it feels like a little bit of second fiddle to Wick, right? You know, Wick has always kind of been the media guy, the person who does all the interviews. While Pags does some, it tends to be Wick. He's just a little bit more out there.
Sort of like Tom Werner to John Henry with the Red Sox, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But in the end, it went to Bill Chisholm. Pags was not happy about it. He wrote a heartfelt, but also I think a little frustrated note to people that he felt he gave the best offer. He said it was fully guaranteed. That is something to note about this deal with Bill Chisholm. They are still looking. It is not a fully financed deal yet. So they are just assuming they can get the money to make this. But it is record-breaking. It is $6.1 billion, but when all is said and done, it'll actually total over $7 billion. But now there's a lot of questions that people have, including me. My network is intimately tied to the Celtics. They are our one and only team. You know, we're not like some of the other regionals in Philadelphia or San Francisco, which have every team in town. We just have the Celtics. And so, you wonder, when this new group comes in, how long will they be willing to pay a luxury tax to have the Jason Tatums and Jaylen Browns? I mean, right now they're in what's called the second apron, which I'm not going to get into because it's very convoluted and it's very hard to understand. But the basis of it is you can't hang out in this second apron tax forever. Next year, I think the Celtics could owe like $500 million in penalties, and then you also get hit with basketball penalties. So at some point, some hard changes and hard choices are going to have to be made.
So it'll
be interesting to see what happens.
So I understand your concerns at NBC Sports Boston, but for the average Celtics fan, why do we care?
Well, you care because you want to know, will they invest? Will they continue to invest in the roster? Will they find ways alongside Brad Stevens to, maybe you have to make a hard choice. Maybe you need to move on from Drew Holiday. Maybe you need to move on from Kristaps Porzingis or Sam Hauser or even a Jaylen Brown. His name has come up as a possibility just to move some money around. But you hope that they don't just shed salary so that they can make money.
Yeah.
You hope that if they shed salary, it's maybe to bring somebody else back to give them a little bit more flexibility in trades, and maybe acquiring some draft capital so that you can get players again in other ways other than just handing out the biggest contracts, because no team can hang out in this level for very long. Like, it just becomes cost prohibitive.
And Grossbeck lost money. Didn't I always read that he was not interested in making a lot of money?
Like, how do you lose money, right? Like, they bought the team for like 600 and some million, and they sold the team for 300 and some million. That's what it was. And they sold the team for $6.3 billion.
That's an excellent point.
But he probably did lose money year in and year out, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't get it. It's like investing in a home, right? Like, you may buy a home in 2020 and you may wait 20 years to sell it because the real return is down the line. And so you hope that Bill Chisholm, who is a big fan, he watches, like, he did an interview with Chris Forsberg, who is our Celtics insider, and he was like giddy. He's like, I can't believe I'm talking to Chris Forsberg, and I love watching Drew and Scal and Abby. Didn't care about the studio people. That's fine. We don't mind. Just as long as you like the team and you want to invest in it. So that's all that matters to us. So this is someone he was at the game last night. The Celtics played in Sacramento, which is, of course, Northern California, which is where his family resides more permanently. His wife is actually really interesting, Kimberly. She's a very progressive woman. She's written some kind of racy books about intimacy after pregnancy and stuff.
Really?
Yes. There's actually a pretty cool article by Mark Shanahan in the Globe, so I'm kind of diving into her and her background, and I decided that we're going to be best friends.
Wait a second. Isn't her great-grandfather the guy who
yes, and she's
carved Mount Rushmore, and she said he's a racist?
Yes, she's very against it.
He was a member of the Klan or something.
Yes.
And she wrote that they should rip down Mount Rushmore or whatever the hell it was. So, in any case, by the way, I can't believe you didn't disclose this. Bill Chisholm, the new owner, was also on the conference, on the text chat yesterday, but he doesn't want to talk about it. Can I say the only thing that interests me, I hate to be...
they thought it was Bill Clinton, WC, you know.
The odd person out here. The weirdest part of this whole thing, to me, is that this Chisholm guy is buying the team for many billions of dollars and agreed with the outgoing front person, Grossbeck, that he can continue
to be the governor,
to be the lead front person for 3 more years, even when he doesn't own the team anymore.
So, and I think this has...
What is that about? That's why Pagliuca didn't get
I think that is why Pags didn't get it. I think Pags was like, enough is enough, Wick. If I'm going to own the team, I'm going to have a greater say. And I think what we discovered through the sale of this team is that Wick actually only owns like 2%.
No, it's his father,
but it's his father, Irv, who had the money and who was the real money behind the investment. And it's the father who's in his 90s who, listen, probably wants to sell the team because he's like, I got to get my affairs in order. I'm 90 years old, right? And so, but I think Wick was hesitant and reluctant, but I don't think he has the capital alone to reinvest in the team. And I think, I will say this, I guess I don't mind it as much because I kind of like the idea of someone who's new and who hasn't lived in, he has a house on Nantucket, but he hasn't lived in Massachusetts for a while. He's been living and working and operating out of California to kind of come in and see how they've been doing business for a smoother transition. But with that said, I do think you wouldn't need that transition had you sold it to Pags, and then you wouldn't have Wick around anymore.
Okay,
so that certainly played a part.
My favorite story of the week. Can we post the photograph first?
Oh, is this the pig?
Don't tell. Does anybody recognize? This is called The Stare. Does anybody in the audience know who this woman is? Nobody? Karis Dodson? Does that ring? Nobody? Who is that woman and what's with the stare there?
Okay, so Karis Dodson is a teenager in California. Her family owns a farm. I did not know that showing pigs, like you show cattle and dogs, was a thing. And I mean, truth be told, until Jamie sent me this story over the weekend and said, does this count as a sports story? I was like, yeah, I guess. I just want to talk about a woman who shows pigs, or a young woman who shows pigs and has like an epic stare. So the whole thing is that she has to make eye contact with the judges, but she also has to be intense to like move. Similar like if you were showing a dog, right? Like if you ever watch like the American Kennel Club dog shows, you have to do things with dogs to get them to go, to prance and pounce and do whatever. Apparently with pigs, you stare at them and you stare at the judges because the judges want to be they give you cues of what you do. And so she has this very intense glare.
Yeah.
And rather, you know what I like most about the story?
She's 14.
She's 14. What I like most about this story is that rather than, a lot of times when young women have like an intense look, right? It's perceived negatively. Oh, she's got an RBF, which I'm not going to say what that is, but a resting you-know-what face. Or, oh, why don't you smile? Why don't you do this? Instead, she's a sensation because she's intense and she's a winner and she's just good at what she does rather than, hey, why don't you smile more, young lady? I also thought it was interesting. Her mom said in the article, I just assumed if you got like millions of TikTok views that they would make money off of their kids doing this. They say they don't really make any extra money off their social media. They get like feed for the pigs and like stuff for the pigs. Like, they have to eat. But it's amazing to me that she's blown up. She's also doing some modeling on the side. She's also a twin.
Her brother does it too.
He's a pig shower too, and her brother also shows pigs. But she has become she's 3 minutes older, and she is
born during a livestock show.
Yes, they were born.
That's one of the stories about the Dadson twins, and they're on Will Smith's Instagram feed.
Yeah, he must have like reposted something.
I mean, it is pretty cool to watch when you see them in the video, and they're like little sticks. I mean, they're not hurting the pigs. They're kind of guiding them around the ring.
Jamie says it's the same exact thing on our TikTok channel for Boston Public Radio. It only pays for my sandwiches at the library. By the way, Marjorie, look at me.
What? I know.
That's what I'm going to start doing.
It's wild.
On the show.
I mean, it's wild.
By the way, if people want to read this is an endless story in the New York Times.
It's great.
Karis Dotson, Karisdadson. It is fabulous.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful
I also
profile.
The other thing I liked about the article is her brother said, the weirdest question I'm asked, do we eat pork? And I'm like, I actually don't think that's, and he was like, of course we do. And I'm like, I actually don't think that's a weird question.
Nor
because
do I.
I think if you got close to those
pigs.
like I would never eat my dog.
Yeah.
So I would think of them, but the kid was like, no, I mean, we raise pigs we just show them and slaughter them. I was like, okay.
And Cy Montgomery talks about how smart they are. The pigs
they're
are really
very
smart. So maybe not quite like dogs, but they're close.
Yeah.
Aren't they as close to humans as any non-human animal? Or they're right up there. Maybe an octopus.
I think chimpanzees are close.
Right. Isn't various monkeys and apes closer to us?
Okay, read the story. So can we talk about the only thing Marjorie really wants to talk about?
What is that?
Tiger Woods is hanging out.
Tiger Woods.
I was like,
Vanessa Trump.
we don't have a Tom Brady Giselle story in here.
No,
we don't.
Who is Vanessa Trump?
Well, she is the ex-wife of Donald Jr.
That is correct.
And
they're in love. Love is in the air.
Love is in the air, according to Tiger Woods.
I know.
Posted
I liked
a picture.
It.
You did?
Well, I mean, Tiger has had a very checkered past, needless to say.
Of his own making,
of his own making. But
Boy, somebody really forced him to take those drugs and cheat on his wife.
It's true.
What a poor soul.
But when I saw the story about his life growing up, where his father, when Tiger's like about 11,
he was under a lot of pressure.
He's in a trailer, and his father next door has got woman after woman after woman after woman. So, I think he had the whole thing with being biracial, and I cut Tiger a little slack.
All right, well, cut Tiger some slack.
Let's hope he's cleaned up his act.
The only issue I have with the post is, so he posts these very public pictures of him and Vanessa Trump, which fine, date who you want to date, be in love with who you want. And then he says, we ask for privacy at this time.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what? Then why are you
post the pictures?
But then I kind of read a little bit more into it, and they said the last time that he dated somebody, it was, and I think it was Lindsey Vonn.
Lindsey Vonn, the great skier.
Yeah, when he dated Lindsey Vonn, when they tried to keep it quiet, the paparazzi was like chasing them everywhere. And so it sounds like he's just trying to get ahead of this and say, listen, yes, we are together. Mm-hmm. Yes, we are in love. Please give us some space and privacy. Don't chase us around and kill us like Princess Diana.
And I also like it because Tiger Woods is probably the greatest golfer of all time.
He is.
He
just blew out his Achilles, though.
He has done some terrible things. Yes. What's Don Jr.? Thanks, Dad.
Next president of the United States is
God,
what he
don't
probably
say that.
is. I'm serious. By the way, did you see the photograph of the two of them lying in the hammock?
Yes, I did.
Here's Tiger Woods.
Okay.
You learned that from Karis Dotson.
Yeah, I don't know. I think...
I am surprised that this is your reaction.
What, that Don Jr.
That you're like happy. You're like, oh yay, he's in love with Vanessa.
I don't think she's happy. I don't think you're happy.
I'm not happy.
You just love Marjorie.
I just
in any form.
I usually spend a lot of time reading People magazine. I can't read it as much as I used to.
By the way, in all fairness
I have
to
read
you,
about serious things like Signal.
Vanessa Trump hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, she's, as far as we know, she's not part of the.
She was at the Republican National Convention, but
you're allowed to go.
You're allowed, yeah. So
she got 5 kids. That's a lot of kids.
She does.
That's a lot of kids.
With Don Jr.
With Don Jr.
That's a lot of kids.
Wow, that's a lot of kids.
So I said when I found out one of our friends one of my husband's friends had 4 kids, I said on purpose. That was my response.
And I think Don Jr. might be somewhat intimidated by Tiger Woods.
Wouldn't you be?
Exactly, and I like that.
Okay, all right.
No, but in all fairness, you're being unfair again. Cocaine reduces the level of intimidation, I think. So I don't think it's as much of a problem as
Okay, all right.
What else we got? What else we got?
Where's my list?
Can we talk about March Madness? And
March Madness.
We may have done this last week, but there's a terrific piece in the Washington Post making the point that Dan Shaughnessy made, I think, when he wrote last week, I'm not watching any of March Madness. A huge percentage of these players, was it 43? Some, almost a majority, have played for at least 2 schools, some for 4 schools. It's sort of like, where's the highest bidder? Which is perfectly fine if it's the pros. But this naive notion that we're watching the best of student athletes. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so this was, I think, it's partially about, so what Jim's talking about is for a long time in college sports, you were not allowed to just transfer on a whim from one school to another. You had to enter a transfer portal, then you had to sit. If you transferred, you had to sit for a year before you could play, and I don't think you lost eligibility, but like you can only keep transferring so many times before you're like 27, right? And so it inhibited the movement of student athletes. Well, student athletes, when they've argued for name, image, and likeness, which is getting paid for their name, image, and likeness being used when only the schools were getting paid for it. One of the other, issues they brought up is, hey, I agree to go to, let's say, the University of North Carolina. This is not a great example because their coaches never leave North Carolina because it's a good school. But like I go there and then the coach leaves in 2 years and I have to stay there or I get punished. Why does this coach get to jump around and make all this money and I have to stay in one place? So they opened up now the transfer portal. So every year you can transfer someone. And I brought up Haley Van Lith last week, who I think has played for like 3 or 4 different women's basketball program. She's a very good basketball player, but if she doesn't feel like she's getting the playing time or she has a better opportunity somewhere else, she jumps and goes. Memphis, I think, so they had this interactive grid on the Washington Post to show you of like the teams you're watching right now, how many of their players have been there for number of years in a row versus been with all these other different teams. Like Memphis, I think, had like 5 players of the 12 on the roster that had played for like 4+ schools.
Yeah.
How many my alma mater had that played for another school?
None.
0.
That's Marquette for
the
those
Catholic
who don't
schools don't seem to do that as much. Am I wrong?
I mean, I think, to be fair, I think depending on the level of player you are, one of the reasons, money is a reason that kids move around. But one of the other reasons is every kid wants to play now. Every kid is told from the time that they're like a little guy or gal how wonderful you are and how great you are at everything. And your mom and dad are telling you that you're going to make millions of dollars. And so you feel like, why am I riding the bench? And so you get frustrated and you transfer. But I just feel like you can... I can't figure out where kids are transferring from and why they're doing it, because if you're already in a really big program, I don't understand why you would
maybe not
just
playing
stay.
enough and you can make more money. I want to get back to what you said about Catholic schools, Jesuit schools. I mean, Marquette was 0 in terms of this. We've mentioned this before. Derek Jackson, formerly of the Globe, used to write a fabulous thing at March Madness. Well, didn't write it. It was, instead of the brackets like we all fill out, who's going to win, graduation rates. And I'm 99% sure that Georgetown was right up there in terms of graduation rates, and some of the best teams in terms of the basketball had graduation rates were pitiful, proving they really don't give a damn about the kids. They give a damn about the money, which is part of the reasons why this NIL thing made sense. Let them at least sharing it.
I mean, if you think about it, like Cooper Flagg, he might be a really good student. He might be a really smart kid.
From Maine, Duke.
Cooper Flagg at Duke is not going to play 4 years at Duke.
Yeah.
He's going to play 1. Maybe he'll play 2 years. Maybe he likes college and has the luxury of not having to jump right to the pros. But like Jason Tatum was at Duke for a year. He did his year. Jaylen Brown did his year at Cal and then got out. Like if you have any opportunity to go to the pros right away and make a ton of, I think the hope is now with this money they stay in college longer.
That's a good point.
But I don't know. But then they're jumping around, so you have no one to root for anyway.
We're speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor reporter for
Trenni.
NBC Sports Boston. Glad we took care of the Tiger Woods situation. Coming up after the new news, Doug Zeghibe from the Skating Club of Boston and Olympic skater Ashley Wagner talked to us about the World Figure Skating Championships happening in Boston this week and how the skating community is still reeling from that tragic January.
More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Boston Symphony Orchestra, announcing the 2025 season of Tanglewood, a getaway for world-class music, lush landscapes, and lifelong memories. Tanglewood.org. American Experience examines the story of a decades-long fight for equality and accessibility for people with disabilities. Don't miss Change, Not Charity, the Americans with Disabilities Act, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. what matters to you.
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. For the first time in nearly a decade, the U.S., specifically Boston, will play host to the World Figure Skating Championships.
Turn of astronaut Suni Williams last week. What we're also curious about, what happens to astronauts physically when they descend from space after spending months in zero gravity? Do your eyeballs really bulge? Do you get bad rashes from a too sanitized spaceship? Apparently you do. That's all I had on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. NPR has seen a Pentagon memo warning against use of the Signal messaging app. NPR's Quill Lawrence reports Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth shared plans on the encrypted app about a U.S. military strike on Yemen in mid-March.
In a group chat that inadvertently included journalist Jeffrey Goldberg, the Trump administration's top intelligence officials discussed sensitive attack plans over the Signal app. But NPR has seen an internal memo sent only last week to the entire Department of Defense that reads, "A vulnerability has been identified in the Signal messenger application." In the military, sending classified data over insecure channels is called slippage when it's considered minor, but even that can be a career ender for a military officer. There's almost no precedent for the heads of defense, state, and national security to be sharing such sensitive military intelligence in a forum that was known to be unsecure. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
NPR CEO Catherine Marr is chair of the board of the Signal Foundation. The group chat is under heavy scrutiny at a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing this hour. Democratic members repeatedly question the nation's intel chiefs, including the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, about it. Senator Angus King, an independent, raised this concern.
You've testified that nothing in that chain was classified. Wouldn't that be classified? What if that had been made public that morning before the attack took place?
Meanwhile, Republican members largely focused on other security concerns for the U.S., such as threats posed by China and Russia. Leaders in Greenland have condemned an upcoming visit this week by an American delegation that includes the wife of Vice President J.D. Vance, as well as National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. From Copenhagen, Adrian Murray has more.
In a video posted to Instagram, Second Lady Usha Vance said she was thrilled about this trip to Greenland, where she'll attend a national sled dog race with her young son. Waltz and Wright plan to visit an American-run military base. The trip comes as President Trump has repeatedly called for U.S. control over the Arctic territory. Speaking to local media, Greenland's outgoing Prime Minister Mude Egil called the trip provocative and a demonstration of power. Talks to form a new government there are still ongoing, following national elections earlier this month. Incoming Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen has also criticised the trip's timing, saying it showed a lack of respect for the Greenlandic people. For NPR News, I'm Adrienne Murray in Copenhagen.
Tesla electric vehicle sales in Europe are taking a sizable hit, even though the overall EV market's growing. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association says a company owned by Elon Musk saw EV sales fall 49% in the first 2 months of this year. The Nasdaq is up 54 points. The S&P's up 3. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Worcester City Council holding a special meeting tonight to discuss the results of a 2-year federal investigation into the city's police department. As GBH's Sam Turkin reports, the Department of Justice concluded that Worcester police often use excessive force.
The DOJ report released in December found officers unreasonably deploy tasers and order police dogs to bite people. The report also referenced credible accounts that officers have sexually assaulted women under threat of arrest. After initially slamming the findings as inaccurate, Worcester police leaders now say they're implementing many of the DOJ's recommendations. That includes ramping up training and prohibiting police dogs at mass gatherings. Tonight, city councilors are expected to consider the creation of a civilian review board to monitor police misconduct. Sam Turkin, GBH News, 89.7.
No less than 3 prominent Democratic senators on Capitol Hill are offering to work with the Trump administration in order to keep TikTok online here in the United States. Those Democrats are U.S. Senators Ed Markey, Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, and Cory Booker of New Jersey. Yesterday, they made an offer in a letter to President Trump as they asked for an update on the administration's efforts to keep TikTok up and running here in the States. In sports, the Celtics, the Bruins, and the Fleet all off until tomorrow. The NBA playoffs start in 2 weeks and 2 days until opening day for the Red Sox. They start the season on the road in Texas. Mostly sunny, low 50s today, 50 in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
He is Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on youtube.com. Thank you, /GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. Starting today, Boston is hosting the ISU World Figure Skating Championships for the second time in just 9 years. Until March 30th, competitive skaters from around the world will descend on the garden to show off their toe loops, axles, lutzes, and lifts. Whatever they are. My apologies.
I've seen them. I've seen them. Yeah,
sure.
In any case, missing from this week's competition are 14 people from the skating community, you all know this, who were killed just 2 months ago in a deadly plane crash between an American Airlines flight and that Army helicopter in D.C. 6 people aboard were affiliated with the Skating Club of Boston, skater Jinna Han. And by the way, if I mispronounce any of these names, I obviously apologize. Her mother, Jin Hee Han, skater Spencer Lane, his mother, Christine Lane, and Boston coaches and the 1994 pairs world champions, Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov. Joining us today to talk about how the skating community has been affected by this tragedy and about this week's spectacular world championships just down the street are Skating of Boston's executive director, Doug Zeghibe, and former competitive skater, Olympian, and World Championship silver medalist, Ashley Wagner. It's great to have you both. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We are thrilled to be here. So that you are here, by the way. So before we talk about what's going on in Boston, these skating championships that are back here, let's start with you, Doug. Tell us about some of the skaters and the coaches that are lost.
Sure. So we lost 6 members in that crash, 2 colleagues, friends, and coaches. Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov were with us for 7 years, relocated from Simsbury, Connecticut to join the Boston skating community and really helped launch the new Skating Club of Boston in our new facility in Norwood. They were world champions and world championship coaches as well.
And Ashley, the 2 young skaters were stars in the making, from what I read. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. They were bright, upcoming talents, and it's obvious that this is such a tragedy, but within the skating community, we are such a close-knit community, and their absence it's so felt. It is such a tragedy, and to lose athletes at such a young age when they had such a promising career in front of them is something that the skating community will be feeling for a long time.
You know, one of the things that Marjorie and I read about at the time and this morning was this beautiful tribute in Washington, including a performance by Maxime, who is the son of the 2 coaches. Can you describe what that day was like for you and others like you?
That was incredibly emotional. I'd say it was cathartic too. It was a real release after weeks of just feeling the emotion of it and working with media and helping to comfort and support the families. And then to see the national skating community come together like this and show what skating can do to not only raise money for the families, but to help express emotions. And then Max closed the first half of the show with just an amazingly emotional, personal tribute to his folks.
How hard was that? For him, I mean, obviously you know him. I mean, I have huge admiration for him paying tribute to his parents and friends and colleagues, but I mean, I can't imagine how you do that.
I mean, it was something that he truly did not owe to anyone. He did not have to perform. He did not have to show up in this way. But for Max, you could tell how important it was for him to be there and to honor the memory of his parents. And I mean, I have chills. This performance was just so heartbreaking, but at the same time, so important for the skating community and Max to have.
You know, this is going to come out crassly, and so let me apologize in advance. When horrors befall groups of people, everybody says how close-knit the community is. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. As an arm's length observer of your community, it was so real and so palpable. And why is it that this skating community is as tightly knit as it obviously is?
Well, it's such a weird little bubble, truly. And the amount of time and energy you have to put into your craft is on another level. And I think that there's 0 degrees of separation in this sport. Everyone really does know everyone. You're connected in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I worked with a few of the athletes who were on that plane, and it's just really crazy how affected everyone is by this. We are all feeling it.
Well, I wondered about that too, and you would know, being a skater yourself. I mean, we're talking hours. When you were a little kid or even a teenager, how much were you practicing every week to be a champion as you were?
I mean, it was my full-time job as a 11-year-old, and that's pretty crazy. And I have a daughter now, and do I want my daughter to be doing that? I would definitely take a second and think about it. But it really paid off for me. I was on the ice at least 3 hours a day after school, 1 hour before school, and then I would be in the gym.
But wait, forget 11 years old. I read at 6, you're in some, I was going to say godforsaken place in Alaska. I didn't mean that. Some little town in Alaska.
I was in the middle of nowhere.
What's the name of that joint? What was the name?
Eagle River.
Eagle River. I haven't been there yet, but I intend to go.
Army brat, we read, right?
I'm an Army brat.
Do you regret how much of your life this took up when I mean, almost every champion skater like you talks about how intense this was from the time they could almost stand, even before they could stand, in a walk in some cases.
Sure.
Do you regret any of that?
I don't regret it because it worked out for me. But there are athletes out there who have put in just as many hours as I have and just for some reason didn't have the luck that I had. I had some luck. I just refuse to listen to athletes who are like, no luck is involved. I was at the right place at the right time, put in the right amount of work, and it worked out for me. I have no regrets. But if I was on the other side and it didn't work out, yes, I think I would have some regrets.
Didn't you have a concussion or two along the way?
Oh, it's applesauce up here.
That's not fun.
Well, hold on.
Okay? Are you okay?
I'm great, yes.
You are okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on for a second, because I you see, we all watch skating on TV. I used to watch it when I was a kid. I thought it was so amazing. But you see people fall on their butt. You see them fall on their side. You don't see falling on your head. Is it from falls on your head?
It's the whiplash. You can hit your head. That's going to happen. But I grew up in the era where concussion protocol was not a thing.
Right, of course.
A coach would be like, skate it off. Skate a couple laps. And I'm like, why am I seeing stars? But now the sport has really evolved. Concussion protocol is something that is taken very seriously. And so athletes and kids are much more protected.
And when you say whiplash, you mean like you might fall and hit your butt, but
your head is snapping back.
Okay, I get it.
Okay, so Doug, let's talk about this championship. My understanding, not that I knew before I read, it is quite rare to bring a championship back to a particular venue as quickly as this was brought back to Boston.
Very unusual.
Why? How big a success was 2016?
2016 was a raging success. Sold out audiences, really put Boston on the map. For something we locals know, that Boston is a skating town, long history of love and education about this sport. But the ISU International Skating Union saw it, US Figure Skating saw it, and they just wanted to bring it back. So we bid for it, and we won the bid, and we've been working on it for the past 2 years.
Did I read that that's why you live here? Is because of your experience in 2016?
Truly, I have no reason to be here at all.
Is that right? Was it really?
I was living in LA. I was training in LA, and it just wasn't for me. And I told myself the second I retired, I could move. And I picked a place on the map. And Boston, I qualified for an Olympic team in this city. And this is the city where I won my world silver medal. And so the energy was good here. You know, LA, the energy. And I just picked a place, and here I am.
You know, Doug was asking me before, do you watch this? And I said, I mean, like everybody else, and I apologize. I watch the Olympic skating. I watch every minute of it, and I love it. And I'm embarrassed to say it doesn't translate into watching other times, but maybe having the championship here will matter. I'm sure you've heard this before. I don't know any of the skaters except by reputation. I am so nervous when the skaters are skating. I almost can't breathe for fear. You know, they describe the kid, I'm sure like you were, the kid and her parents and their siblings, and oh my God, and they train
their life story.
48 hours a day for, whatever. And you're saying, let's just hope they don't fall. Let's hope. Are you nervous when you're competing at the greatest?
I don't want to be out there either.
That's not true. That is not true.
You feel the nerves, but you're a professional athlete. You are doing so much physical training, but you're also spending time doing that mental training as well. So by the time that you step out on that ice, I've physically run through my program thousands of times. Mentally, I've done it thousands of times more.
Yeah, but can I say one last thing about this, and I'll let it go. The difference to me is, as an observer, not a doer, is unlike gymnastics and skating, when you make a mistake, even a layperson knows that you made a mistake. If you're a baseball player,
Jim,
unless you're Bill Buckner,
it's the commentators. Don't you remember the Saturday Night Live thing
I do,
they did
actually.
about
That's
the
right.
skaters?
Yeah, that's
and the
right.
skaters are doing these incredible moves, and then he failed the triple lutz. His life is over. He may as well crawl back to the side of the ring. I mean, that's the way they kind of, not to knock the commentators, but you know what I mean, Doug?
Do you
It's a
laugh
little
at
bit
that?
over the top.
Do you hate it, or do you laugh at those skits? Tell the truth.
At these kids?
At the skits.
Oh, the skits? No, I crack up.
You
Totally
do?
crack
Okay.
up. Because they're really catching the essence of what makes the sport funny.
Yeah, and
it's true.
they're doing this incredible performance, and there's like one false move, and like, oh my God. You know what I mean?
When you have a subjective sport.
Yes,
It's tough.
yes. I mean, it's the athleticism of these, and it's getting more and more advanced. I mean, who's this kid that we saw?
Ilya Malinin?
Yes.
He's the
quadruple axle guy?
Yeah.
We
Yes.
watched it this morning.
He's fierce. He's fierce.
Superhuman.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
competing at this
He's
thing.
competing at this
Absolutely.
thing.
What is this thing?
This thing is the World Championships,
the
and
word,
it's
but
going
what
to
is-
be it's basically, for the most part, going to be the athletes are watching at the Olympics next year. For the most part. And so this U.S. team, we're going into this with 3 potential champions. Ilya Malinin being one of them, quad god himself. He's competing a
Quad god? Is that what they call it? Quad-
It's self-titled. Self-titled, but hey, if you have
That's great.
what it takes, fine. So he's going to be competing a quadruple axel, which, to give a layperson context, that's like a unicorn. It shouldn't exist, and yet it does. So maybe not like a unicorn, but something.
Who else are potential champions?
Amber Glenn.
Amber
and the
Glenn.
women.
Amber Glenn is one of my personal favorite athletes. She is on my fantasy team, so Amber Glenn needs to show up for me.
She's fierce.
She is incredible, competing at triple axel, a very competitive athlete, and is an athlete who we've seen really transform over the last couple of years. It's cool. She used to really have a hard time showing up under pressure and competition, and now she's just figured it out, and it's really exciting to back her as a fan, as a former skater.
She's not the one who retired at 19 and then came back. Is that her, or that's a different one? Okay, fine.
That's
No.
Canadian, I think.
That's Deanna
But
Stellato,
we also
the
have
Canadian.
Alisa Efimova and Misha Mitrofanov from Boston, who are the new U.S. pair champions. They'll be competing tomorrow and Thursday night.
Are they part of your deal, skating
Yes,
club?
they train
How
with us.
exciting is that?
It's great. We're really excited for them. They're as good on the ice as they are off the ice. Great kids. Really rooting for them.
Doug, did you skate?
I did.
Yeah?
I grew up at the skating club of Boston and skated.
Is that
Okay,
true?
and-
That's
and-
great.
Yeah,
So
at the
what-
old one on Soldier
Oh,
Field
that
Road.
is
So at what
fabulous.
point do you realize, you
I'm
know...
going to college.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you realize that at 9, 11,
No.
or is it 17?
No, it was like 14 or 15.
14 or
and then
15.
I left at 17. I decided to row crew for a year in high
Yeah.
school and then went off to college.
And the other thing I wonder too, you talk about these quadruple axle things. I mean, I'm old enough to remember. I think when I was a kid, people were only doing double axles. So what is it that the training is better, or that the coaching is better? How can it be like it's a miracle in the 70s to do double axles, and now you got this kid that can do the quadruple axle?
I mean, he is just on another level. He's an athlete unlike any figure skater I've ever seen before. I can't tell you what the secret is there. I think he's just insanely talented. The way that athletes are training now is completely different. There's a lot more weightlifting. There's a lot more of that explosive work. So the height that they're getting, you have to get up in the air to buy yourself time, and he's just really figured it out.
We're
And
talking
he's
to
quick.
Doug. Let me just say who we're talking to. Doug Zeghibe, who is the executive director of the Skating Club of Boston, and Olympic and international figure skating winner, Ashley Wagner. When you mentioned the Olympics, Ashley, this isn't a formal qualifying event, or is it a formal qualifying event?
So this is a bit of a complicated event. You don't just get Olympic spots. You have to earn Olympic spots for your country. So every single country has the opportunity to earn 3 total Olympic spots per discipline. So we have 4 disciplines: women's, men's, pairs. Pairs are the ones who are doing the insane things that everyone looks at and is like, I don't need to do that. And then ice dance. So for this event, it's going to decide how how many Olympic spots your country has. So
I
there
see.
is a lot at stake.
So Doug, let's get back to you. So you realized you were all washed out there as a skater at 17,
Done.
but I bet you can do a pretty good job on the ice still, can't you? Sort of?
Actually, no, I don't go on the ice anymore.
But
it's fun to watch, though.
So you went off to college, but you came back to get involved in skating nonetheless.
Yes.
So what was your trajectory? How'd that happen?
I worked on a volunteer show while I was at college, An Evening with Champions. Decided it was fun. Left the sport, but I had met a lot of folks in the sport. And I was out in California, and I started a production company with Brian Boitano.
Oh, my God.
We did shows, TV specials, and then from there, I really missed what you were talking about earlier, which is the excitement of competitive skating.
Yeah.
And really the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, because there's so much tension in it. It's just thrilling.
So, Ashley, did I read you live on Nantucket?
I do currently, yes.
Okay, what are you about? There's some secret you're not telling
So
us?
I just had a baby, and my husband is born and raised from there. So we
Yeah.
moved out there to be closer to family, but as lovely as the island is, I lived in Boston for about 6 years, and I'm missing the city.
Oh, really? But that wasn't my question. I don't even know why I asked that. But you do training too, right?
Yes, so I coach athletes.
What I thought was really, I think I got this right. You don't just train kids like you were. You train adults too. I don't mean who are
Absolutely.
stars, but I mean people who want to learn and get good at skating, even though they're not a child and they're not going to be in the Olympics.
Yes, so think of a hockey player. You didn't make it to the show and you really miss hockey. You have the beer leagues to play and you can go back and play a hockey game at 12 a.m., but you're going to be on the ice. Figure skating doesn't really have that space, so I created a fitness class for retired and adult figure skaters just to get back on the ice and do what they love.
You know, I was going to ask you that, and I'll ask you, Doug. You know, we all have a famous Nancy Kerrigan that was here, local girl. We all followed her career. I don't know how old Nancy Kerrigan is now. Maybe she's 40 or 45 or something.
Sounds about right.
I mean, is it like any other sport that you're not going to be doing your triple axels, but you can keep skating well into old age?
Oh, absolutely. Richard Dwyer is 88. He was like Mr. Debonair in the old Ice Follies. He's still on the ice doing an axel.
Great.
Yeah.
He goes way back. He's probably our lead elder skater. But you can come to the Skating Club of Boston and learn to skate as an adult.
You can.
So it's never too old. I mean, adults are definitely more fearful of falling than kids.
But they're the best students. I love working with adults.
Why is that?
Because adult skaters want to know how to do something on a cellular level. When I'm teaching Susie Q, the 5-year-old, she's like picking her nose and she's, and I'm like, come on, I want you to love this sport so much. The adults are there because they want to be there and they love this sport. And I think it's so cool.
So for those of us whose ankles turn in, when we get out on the ice skates, you could take care of that.
That's an equipment. That's your equipment.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. It's the rental skates. It's not you. You could have been a champion skater.
Okay.
Absolutely. You don't know that.
You know, Doug, Marjorie and I think you learned this term. I never heard the term sweeper.
Sweeper.
Tell us
About the
Yeah.
sweepers.
Tell us who the sweepers are and what role they'll have
The
at the
sweepers,
championships.
it's a long tradition in skating. I think it goes back to the early 70s. They're the kids that take to the ice after performance and they sweep it clean of anything the audience throws. These days, it's usually plush toys, other things with little notes on for the skaters. And it's a competitive thing.
You have to try out.
We had tryouts at the Skating Club of Boston last year.
To be a sweeper?
To be a sweeper. I think it was 400 kids tried out for 40 spots.
For this?
Oh, my God.
And they were from around the country.
That's
Parents
great.
were flying their kids in.
How old?
I think our youngest is 8, and it's 8 to 12.
So they were flying in from like Utah or Minnesota or
California,
something?
Florida.
To try
yeah.
out to be a
Yes.
sweeper here.
And
It's
so-
very
and it was
competitive.
blind on.
Is
So-
Mr. Debonair going to be a sweeper?
No,
or
Mr. Debonair is going to be in the audience, though.
He
He's
is?
Here. Yes.
So these are little aspiring
Yes.
skaters, I would assume?
And there's a lot of skaters today who are at the national level who will tell you they started out as a sweeper.
I started out as a sweeper.
there we go.
I did. I was a sweeper at the 2003 World Championships.
Really?
Yeah.
And what was that? How excited were you?
Well, I
were you
was-
old enough to? How old you were then? No, we can
I'm trying to
figure
do the math. I think I was about 12.
And how excited were you?
I was so thrilled to be on the ice with those athletes of that caliber. That was life-changing for me.
So what do you wear when you're a sweeper?
They give you an outfit. Everyone has the same outfit, so it
Okay.
depends on the local organizing committee. Usually have some kind of a skating dress.
Yeah.
Ours are custom designed from a Canadian group.
They're so
Okay.
cool.
Like
That's the
custom
other thing.
design.
That's the other thing that the outfits have so changed now. I mean, people come out and ice skate. We're not talking any like something you can go pick up at TJ Maxx.
I'll let you speak to that, Ashley, but they're all custom made.
They're all custom made. It's not just a piece of Lycra anymore. I think skaters have really expanded into the storytelling element of their performances, and you have that first impression of a costume, and that's going to really help the audience get into your performance.
You can really talk. You do broadcasting too?
I do.
You do. And you're doing something broadcasting
I am
like
the
at this field.
in-arena
What does that
host.
mean in English? We read that. What does that mean?
So that's a great question. This is the first time that the International Skating Union is bringing in a in-arena host to this capacity, but I'm basically going to be commentating over the warm-up. So if you're in the audience, you're going to hear my voice. If you like what you're hearing, my name is Ashley Wagner. If you don't like what you're hearing...
Your name is Doug.
My name is Doug Zeghibe.
Doug, let's talk about the Americans. Other countries, you think of Russians have been domineering over the years in ice skating.
Dominating, I'd say is more like it.
Dominating. Is that still true, or is it other countries, or where are we?
It's tougher to measure right now because the Russians aren't competing at the international level.
Because of the doping?
No, doping in Ukraine.
Ukraine, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So it's basically been a bonus for some of the disciplines for the other skaters to have a chance at top medals.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll be back for the Olympics or not.
But the Americans are always in the running.
Certainly in ladies, men's, and dance, absolutely.
Yep.
Our pair teams are still coming along. The Russians definitely did dominate in pairs, but it's been a great opportunity for our pair skaters.
And is pairs the same as ice dancing?
No, pairs is free skating.
Okay, because ice dancing is so gorgeous and so romantic.
Ice dancing is like ballroom dancing on the ice. Pair skating is where you see the man chucking the woman over his head.
She's spinning 3 revolutions sideways.
It's so intense and so hard.
And what about China? China always seems to be producing some good.
China not as strong these days, but Japan super strong.
Japan is going to be one of the main contenders at this event, as well as the South Korean team.
Yes.
Okay.
Marjorie meant to say a lot of dominatrix in the Chinese. Is that what you're trying to say a minute ago? Okay, so let's go back to you. For people who are enticed, I'm actually excited about this. I'm not excited enough to sign up. But for those who are, if they want to find the Skating Club of Boston, how do they find you?
Our website, scboston.org. We have a new facility, a $68 million facility in Norwood.
$68 million?
$68 million. That's when we left Soldiers Field Road in Brighton, your neighbor.
My goodness.
Yeah, what goes on at Soldiers Field Road? Anything?
A developer bought it from us, and I think it's still in the permitting stages of development.
Forget Soldiers Field. Where'd you get the $68 million?
Well, that property on Soldiers Field Road was worth 40.
Oh, so that's a good start.
So there's no ice skating. There's no ice skating at Soldiers Field Road anymore.
No, that's been closed for 4 years. We opened in Norwood in September 2020.
And if people want to find you, including your husband, who didn't know you were moving to Boston until he heard you a few minutes ago.
We talked.
That's good. That's what she says. Anyway, how do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, AshWagner2010, and I'll just be the voice in your ears at the arena.
Are there still tickets for this World Championship?
Yes, tomorrow night. The weekend events are sold out. There might be spotty tickets available, but I encourage everybody to check out the pairs event tomorrow night and Thursday night. Tomorrow night, there'll also be a tribute put on by the International Skating Union for those we lost.
That's great. That's really, really great.
And you can get tickets on Ticketmaster.
Well, it's wonderful to talk to you both.
You
It
guys
sounds
are
so
terrific.
exciting.
That was great. Thank you.
I don't know, Jim. Maybe this could be. What do you think?
Well, maybe not. I mean, we're encouraging others, but I don't think.
We have been speaking with Skating of Boston's Executive Director, Doug Zeghibe, and Olympic figure skater Ashley Wagner. The ISU World Figure Skating Championships happening at TD Garden, March 25th to March 30th. For tickets and competition schedule, go to isuworlds2025.com. That's isuworlds2025.com. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Both.
us.
Great. Thanks.
To talk to you. After a quick break, Jim, mark your calendar. There's going to be another partial solar eclipse. We'll talk about that, plus all things outer space with Sky and Telescope's Kelly Beatty. He's next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The year is 1974, and illegal bookies are running numbers everywhere, while running circles around the brand new state lottery.
The games were slow, they were expensive, the prizes were small.
But a simple piece of paper is about to change the game. The scratch ticket.
People would scratch them immediately on the counter.
Find out how on this week's Scratch and Win, the true story of how government got into gambling.
We knew we had the world by the tail.
Tonight at 9 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Neville Place Assisted Living in Cambridge, providing residents with a range of services designed to help seniors stay sharp, social, and independent. More at nevilleplace.org/care. And Advocates, the human services provider helping individuals facing mental health, substance use, and other life challenges, is now hiring clinicians. Learn more about their supportive culture and open positions at Advocates.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're live at the library stream at youtube.com/GBH News. Last week, we watched the beautiful, inspiring return to Earth of NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, though one local weatherman thought it was possibly AI, which it was not. Join us now to talk about the very real return of the two, actually of the four, but in particular, Suni and Butch have been there for months and months and months. What being up in space that long does to your body and other things and other space-related news is Sky and Telescope senior editor Kelly Beatty. Kelly, it's wonderful to see you. Welcome back.
Always a pleasure. Great to have you.
So, what did you think? We saw the 4 parachutes. We saw the dolphins. What did you think of the landing?
I remember like the Apollo landings, and it was all these grainy images from like 10 miles away, and then you've got drones there with the pod of dolphins and everything. It was just amazing, must-see TV, I have to say.
Can we play a little? By the way, one of our favorite interviews of the last year, without a close second, was when Suni Williams zoomed in from the space station. It was just fabulous. Here she is talking to us in October. Just a little snippet. It's online if you want to hear the whole thing. Speaking about what she understands about civilization from her unique point of view in space.
I think the one thing I really get from being up here is we take life a little too seriously on Earth. We get aggravated with some of the littlest, stupidest things that really we shouldn't, because this is our one big planet. This is our one big place that we live. You know, we don't really know if anybody else lives anywhere else. So we really should all just get along.
You know, Donald Trump went out of his way to say they'd been abandoned by Joe Biden and all that sort of thing. Is there any truth to any of that
Not
at all?
Not at all.
So what happened? Why were they there 9 months instead of 8 days?
Right. NASA has contracted with SpaceX and also with Boeing to develop ferries, essentially, to the International Space Station. And this was the first test of the Boeing model, the Starliner. And on the way up, it developed some problems with its thrusters and other glitches that maybe should have been worked out ahead of time, but they got up to the space station okay. And out of an abundance of concern, they left them there for a while, tried to figure out if it was safe to go back or not. Ultimately, they brought the capsule, the Starliner, back to Earth without them. And this set in motion, it's not just about, is there another spacecraft that can come up? The space station needs a minimum number of people on board to run it. And so if they had been like rushed back on whatever the next available spacecraft was, it would have left the space station on demand. There's nothing to the notion that they were abandoned.
And so can you describe to us, we read a lot prior to their return about what astronauts who are in space for extended periods of time are likely to experience. I haven't read anything yet about what they actually experience, but if you know details about those two in particular or in general, fill us in. What changes do people experience when they spend a lot of time up there?
I think most people understand that when you're in this environment, your body doesn't have to work as hard, so your muscles weaken and so forth. And so they're exercising to try to maintain muscle mass and things like that. But your bone density goes down. And the fluid in your body migrates to your head. You feel like you have a cold all the time because your head is kind of flushed. Your eyeballs actually change shape a little bit. And a lot of that corrects itself once you get back down onto the ground.
Not bone density, from what I understand.
But not bone density. I said a lot.
Okay. Okay.
I qualify. Anyway, you eventually gain the mobility. Suddenly you have to get used to the fact that there's water in your legs. Your skin, because you're in this, all your clothing is floating, gets super sensitive. And so when you get back on the ground, it's like sandpaper on your arms.
Really?
Yeah. So for all those reasons, and trust me, Butch and Suni would not have traded a moment of it.
So it sounds
right?
like, yeah.
The other thing, too, is that over time in space, you get exposure to a little radiation. And although it's not dangerous, not to the levels, there are thresholds. But like those two on this trip probably got as much radiation as a resident near the Fukushima plant in Japan would have.
Wow.
That's not a problem?
It's not. It's not dangerous, but there are limits to this. And it's not so bad for International Space Station. I mean, both of them, they're in their 60s now. They may never fly again. So they obviously
Wilmore and Williams are in their 60s?
Yes.
Wow.
Or nearly
pretty
so.
damn good.
Yeah.
Nearly so. Right now on board is Don Pettit, who is the oldest active astronaut.
How old is he? Roughly.
Mid to late 60s.
We should say, by the
why-
way, not only is Kelly an expert on the subject matter, you applied and made it through several rounds to be a journalist astronaut not too long, well, a while ago.
A while
right?
ago, yeah.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
made it how far
I
again?
made it to the semifinals.
Well, that's a huge
top
kind of
100.
thing. It is.
Yeah, our staff is saying Sonny's 59, Butch is 62. So there you go.
All right.
You're close.
Average is 60 and a half.
So is it just that they're worried in general because people have more issues as they age, or is there some specific reason?
No, it's everyone. It's everyone. So, for example, the really celebrated case was when Mark Kelly spent almost a year. He was in his prime. He spent almost a year. He had this twin.
Yes.
On the ground. And so it was the twin study. And he was very...
Mark is the senator. Scott is the non-senator.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I think Scott's the one. Wasn't Scott the one that was in
went,
space?
and that's right. And,
Yeah.
and Mark was his twin on the ground. And, you know, he was very candid about all the things that happened to him, and like getting used to walking again, all that stuff. I was making this point about radiation because it's not so big a deal for just going around the Earth's orbit, but if you were to go to Mars, you no longer have the Earth's magnetosphere to protect you, and there's real concern about how much radiation or how to protect against that radiation once you're in the, the outback of space.
You know, we read a thing, first of all, and people also grow a little bit, but that disappears pretty quickly,
and
too.
their brain, I saw that study, the twin study thing, too, of the Kellys, and your brain moves a little bit around in your head.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you have this whole, the fluid wants to migrate.
Yeah.
So
and he mentioned that Scott did that when you get up to walk, the fluid can build up around
very
your
quickly in your
ankles
legs,
and your
yeah.
legs.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing because you're flying really in space, right around the spaceship, right?
So one of the things we learned that I never heard this morning, we read, I think in a New York Times piece or somewhere, is that there are concerns that the International Space Station may be too clean, too germ-free.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
I thought germ-free was a good thing. Why is that a problem?
Plus, they don't wash very often up there.
Well, that's what I read. They say when they were coming down that the capsules stunk.
Right.
Okay, so.
And so
Sorry.
it is a fairly sterile environment, and here on Earth, we are not in a sterile environment. You know, you hear stories about how mom sent her kid out to play in the dirt because they would pick up all this stuff. It's true. And so these astronauts, they have... they tend to be more susceptible because their biome mix, the critters, the microbes that they're exposed to on the space station are fewer than what they get here on the ground. Plus, there is the problem of hygiene. They don't get to take showers, for
They don't
example.
take any showers for 9 months?
There's not enough water. The water is it's a scarce thing. And in fact, one of the things we were going to talk about, but we're not, is like the mining asteroids for metals and stuff. The most valuable thing on an asteroid is the water.
Oh.
If you were, because you can take that water, you can live with it, you can break it down to hydrogen and oxygen, it's rocket fuel, it's more precious than the metals.
Okay, so you're going to say something.
Well, before we move away from this whole
I don't want
topic.
to move away from this.
Oh, you don't?
I'm not,
well, let
yet,
me
no.
ask you what I was going to ask
Yeah,
anyway.
go ahead.
You know, a lot of people are worried about their Teslas, now because Elon Musk has lost some popularity. Jim has to worry about his Tesla.
Thank you.
But but people do say wonderful things about Teslas as a piece of machinery. Is that the same is true of Elon Musk's spacecraft? Is it seen as that revolutionary like the Tesla is?
Oh,
or
yeah.
what?
So, for example, these astronauts flying up and down, they're launched on SpaceX rockets. And what happened was that, NASA has long kind of gotten out of the rocket game. They're more into the spacecraft and the experiments and all of that. So rocket launches have been commercialized for a very long time. Musk found the magic partly because his his rockets are reusable to keep the cost down. And so last year there were, I don't know the actual numbers, there were like 150 or 200 rocket launches between Canaveral and Vandenberg Space Force Base, and the vast majority of those were SpaceX rockets.
And then they come back.
Have you seen the video of that? It is incredible.
Explain that, how they come back and land in the thing that they take off from.
Well, it's just a matter of making the rocket boosters, the part at the bottom, smart with the technology and the ability to be guided, and GPS has certainly helped a lot. You can pinpoint where you're coming back. You might remember they started doing it out on rafts out in the middle of the ocean, and they still do that to some extent, but they can bring them back to your original launch, including the giant Starship, which is the most powerful rocket ever built. Now it comes back and it's comes back in this. The rest of it has been blowing up recently, but the main booster comes back and nestles back into its launch.
That was always going to wait. There were a couple of SpaceX explosions in the last month or two.
Yes.
What were they of? What exploded?
That was the Starship. So this is the vehicle that SpaceX and Musk hope to use to get people ultimately to Mars.
So this is. I was just going to ask. So this is much better than where Bezos is with Blue Origin or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's come along very slowly, and part of it is there's been this competition between the two of them. Who knew that SpaceX has gotten the lion's share of NASA's business? Blue Origin is not there yet, but may eventually.
Okay.
So I want to stay on this private sector thing for a second. So the conscious, intentional decision that was made by the government, by NASA years ago, is to move in the direction of at least a piece of the operation being dominated by the private sector.
That's right.
Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I mean, it's obviously been very successful. NASA's budget, which has been going down the last couple of years, this gives them, they don't have to worry about partitioning, except for the Artemis program, which NASA itself, this is their moon rocket under construction. And that's the expensive part.
But are you not worried about whatever kind of safeguards there are? I don't just mean safety, but oversight. Because as we move in this direction and talk about conflicts of interest, so Musk owns SpaceX. At the same time, the Doge is firing people at NASA. Of course, nobody cares about that in this country. So, I mean, beyond the fact that he benefits, which ethics is not your piece of the action, not that you're not ethical, I know you are, but it seems to me that there is a tipping point beyond which the likes of you would be concerned about loss of government oversight of what the private sector was doing, or you're not worried about that?
Let's take the Starliner, the Boeing spacecraft as an example. Boeing didn't decide whether to stay or go on its own. It was in partnership with NASA. I mean, NASA has not just turned over the keys. It's part of the operation
so far.
And so the other just anecdote is, when SpaceX, they launched from South Texas with these starships. And it broke apart, and it was dangerous to the aircraft lanes over Florida and such like. The FAA gets involved then. And so the FAA is actually investigating SpaceX right now for did they violate some of the protocols for safety.
What do you think the outcome of that investigation is going to be?
I have no idea.
I do. The answer is not guilty as charged. I mean, is it not a problem that the guy who is probably the chief private sector force within space travel, it's probably not the proper terminology, is the guy who's deciding how big the government agency that oversees this will be?
Well, let me pivot away from the safety aspect for just a second.
Okay.
Musk obviously has a dog in this fight. He's building spacecraft, he's building rockets. NASA's Artemis program is way behind schedule, super over budget, and has been a drain on the agency for a long time. It's been built for the last 2 decades. I would not be surprised. By the way, NASA was kind of spared the Doge axe, like its probationary employees are largely still there. So I would not be surprised.
They got rid of the chief scientist. I mean, that's pretty serious, it seems to me.
And a few others too, but it's not thousands of people.
Correct.
So I would not be surprised in the next 2 months if you see a decision on the part of the administration to cancel the Artemis program and pivot some or all of those resources into what Musk is doing with his Starship. I think that's entirely possible. NASA has a kind of really bad track record for these really large projects, Space Shuttle and Apollo, for example, to be over budget and way behind on schedule for delivery.
Why?
It's a giant bureaucracy. I mean, they ultimately get the job done. But NASA was a piecemeal organization from the get-go back in the 1950s, and they have field centers like Marshall Spaceflight Center that you've probably never heard of in Alabama that would go away if they didn't have a big rocket to build.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of NASA's preservation going on here.
Yeah, well, that's one of the issues that people complain about. The government has gotten too big with the bureaucracy. But tell us about, can we move on from this now?
We can.
Tell us about Blue Ghost.
Oh, yes. So that was also an offloading of NASA. They signed a contract. They are trying to find commercial partners, private investment, to be the conduit, the ferry of experiments to the moon. NASA will be some of those payloads, some of those experiments. Others will buy in. And so you saw two just within the last month. There was Blue Ghost that was very successful. And then there was the Intuitive Machines just a week or so afterward that landed, and then it fell on its side and it couldn't charge its batteries and it died. But this is a teething problem, a nascent industry. There's another spacecraft going to be launched by a Japanese private firm in a couple of months called Hakuto. That is also a private spacecraft headed to the moon.
You know what I forgot to ask? I couldn't read my writing. Now I can. One of the heartening things, which I'm sure isn't that significant, but I like to think it was, is when Wilmore and Williams got off the little capsule thing there was another American, and by the way, Pettit is 69, the oldest, as you said, and a cosmonaut, a Russian. So our relationship with the Russians through the space program is still good. I mean, forget Trump cozying up to Putin, but even though up until November 5th, our relationship with Putin was horrible, as it should have been.
And the answer there lies in the fact that the U.S. and the Soviet Union / Russia were the core partners in building the International Space Station in the first place. So they retained rights to have crew there all the time. So, for example, the space station has 14 modules, pressurized modules. 8 are U.S., 6 are Russia, 1 Japanese, and 1 European. So, yeah, that's an ongoing partnership. Pettit, for example, launched not on a SpaceX or a Boeing Starlink,
on a Russian?
He went on a Russian Soyuz.
That's pretty
And
great.
his Russian is pretty good, too.
So, there are a couple of terms. I love the terms that are coined that you know a lot about, I know nothing about, in terms of outer space. The one that scared me, which was the only one until today, was black hole. And I have to say, you could explain it 10,000 times, I still don't know what it is. And you'd explain things brilliantly. When I read about the Big Crunch last night, that was it for me. Right. That was terrifying.
Yeah.
What is the Big Crunch?
Something to look forward to.
Kelly Beatty,
okay.
What is it?
All right, so everything that we see in the universe, all of the matter, the galaxies, the stars, planets, that's 5% of what the universe is.
Wow.
Then there's 20% of this, 25% of this stuff called dark matter, which kind of holds galaxies together invisibly. We don't know what it is. We just know that it has mass and exerts gravity. Then there's the vast majority is this stuff called dark energy, for lack of a better word. It's kind of like anti-gravity. It was first envisioned by Einstein, and it was proven to be the case in the late 90s because they found that rather than the universe slowing down as it expands, it's actually speeding up. And so this dark energy is propelling it. The new result is that apparently the dark energy, its effect has not been constant over the history of the universe, which is 13.8 billion years for those paying attention.
Yep.
And so it's probably it has lessened. And this is, in a sense, good news because it means that the universe won't accelerate and expand forever, tearing everything apart, that it might be slowing down, and we don't know the outcome of that, but it does seem that this dark energy has not remained constant through the history of the universe.
So rather than expand, though, it sounds like you're cushioning the blow. Instead of expanding, there may be a big crunch. Is that what? Crunch does not sound good to me.
Could be. It could be, but that's not the conclusion yet.
Not yet.
You're safe. You may sleep well tonight.
But big crunch would mean we'd all be made like those cars that are made into little rectangles at the wrecking thing. Is that what I mean, is that upsetting to you or not?
Well, I think it's so big, it could take a long time to get to me.
It will take
crunch.
a long time.
But you know, when you said, I think you said 5%, we know I've seen 5%. Right?
If you look, everything you can see in the universe is only 5% of the mass. Yeah.
So, I hate to ask such a stupid question, but I really know nothing.
There are no stupid questions, Marjorie.
Is it possible it just expands forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever?
We don't know where the edge of the universe is.
We don't know where the edge of the universe is.
By the way, one of our coworkers just sent us a note, Marjorie, and said, it feels like we're in a period of dark energy,
Yeah.
which I think is probably true.
So we were talking a while ago about these drones flying around, people seeing these unidentified flying objects. That's not what they call them anymore. What do they call them? They call them
unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yeah, and the pilots were
UAP.
talking about seeing things out the window. When we only know about 5% of it, the idea that people might not be floating around, or not necessarily people, but other beings, and seeing a planet as distinctive as ours, because we are distinctive with the green and the blue and all that kind of stuff, is sort of crazy that people wouldn't have, or something.
We could do a whole segment on that. Are we alone? But listen, I want to pivot back before we run out of time to talk a little bit about this eclipse. And
the solar eclipse.
And to get your attention back, I brought show and tell. I brought something for show and tell.
Good.
This, Marjorie, is a piece of the moon.
Is it really, or is
it is really?
No.
Oh my
it is
goodness!
Really. So
Can I open it? Can I open it?
Pieces of the moon fall to Earth.
What is she going to touch it?
Can I open it?
Yeah, go ahead.
And she can touch it?
Yeah. They falls to Earth as meteorites. They've been
It's
blasted.
pretty. It's like a quartz, like a countertop in your
can't
kitchen.
have it. You can't take it.
I won't take it.
Okay.
Look at the little shining dots in it.
It is.
It's
okay,
beautiful.
keep talking here.
All right, so Saturday morning,
Saturday
morning, there will be a partial eclipse of the sun.
Yeah.
And that means that the moon will come directly between the Earth and the sun. Now, it is not total like we thought about from last year.
Yeah, it's only 58% in Boston.
Here in Boston.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
where
at
I am.
sunrise. So I want everybody who, if it's clear, the weather is not looking all that great, but if you can get to someplace with a level horizon facing east, you don't need to be on the shore. When the sun rises, half of it will be gone.
Wow.
Right?
That's kind of cool.
That's right. Now, Sky and Telescope, we send tours to places where there are eclipses and such. We have a group of 20 people going to name that future country. They're going to Greenland.
Oh, really?
To see this eclipse and also to see some auroras, and who knows who they might run into when they're over there.
That's right. Mrs. Vance is...
While you're talking, can you get a shot of this rather than looking at Kelly? Our colleagues want a picture. Keep talking.
All right.
Kelly.
So anyway, this eclipse...
Maybe not.
We in Boston are actually kind of well positioned because
where should we go?
Anywhere you can see the eastern horizon clear.
Yeah.
Right. Sunrise will be at 6:32 here in Boston, and the eclipse will already be in progress. In fact, most of the way over, and it will last until 7:08.
So you have to go by the water to see the horizon, like
just
South Boston?
Just where you can see a clear eastern horizon, no trees, no buildings and such, and so. This eclipse will already be underway. It'll be seen in Europe and Greenland and Iceland. We here in the Northeast are the only ones in the U.S. that will see it.
Oh.
Right?
That's
By the time you get down to Washington, it's nothing.
So where are you going to look?
I'm going to be in a secret place in Maine.
A secret place in Maine.
That's where I'm going to be too then. Yes. If he's going to be in a secret place in Maine, so am I.
I bet you will be by the water.
We only have 30 seconds. Do you buy these things?
Yeah, so you buy them
can buy a piece of the damn moon?
Yes. Yes.
Jesus. I mean, that's incredible.
There are a couple of hundred meteorites that are known to have come from the moon, and we know that because we have samples of the moon that we can compare them to, and the composition and the chemistry is the same.
Ancestry.com. That's the way you figure that out. Okay.
No, 23andMe.
You know,
23andMe,
no one
okay.
explains this stuff better than you, I should
Yeah.
say.
Oh, you're very kind.
Kelly
Thank
Beatty,
you.
it's great to have you. As always, Kelly.
Every time, anything that we've been discussing, skyandtelescope.org
we should have said that.
That's right.
is the place to go, which can really help you out.
Skyandtelescope.org.
Skyandtelescope.org. And Kelly Beatty, of course, is senior editor at skyandtelescope.org. Kelly,
A pleasure
great
always.
to see you as always.
thank you so much for
All right,
coming in.
clear sky.
Kelly Beatty.
Kelly Beatty. We've been speaking with Kelly Beatty from Sky and Telescope, and it's skyandtelescope.org. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Up
Kelly.
next, it is time for two more things. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, a federal judge in Boston is weighing arguments on the Trump administration's efforts to limit gender designations on passports. And Worcester city leaders are considering new police accountability measures on the heels of a scathing report from the Department of Justice. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7 and streaming online at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Celebrity Series, presenting What Makes It Great with Rob Capello. Capello and musicians shine a light on the songs of Simon and Garfunkel, April 5th at NEC's Jordan Hall. Tickets at celebrityseries.org. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, fueled by cutting-edge research and aided by the latest technology. Open enrollment courses include over 90 in-person and online courses offered throughout the year. executive.mit.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're at the library, and it's time for two more things. Take it away, Marjorie.
Okay, I have to hurry because Jim has a very important...
No, I didn't say that. I did not say
Okay,
that.
early Monday
You are
morning.
impossible.
The first commuters made the more than 90-minute trek from the South Coast to South Station, Fall River, New Bedford, up to South Station. It was great. You know, Phil Ang, Ted Lasso of the MBTA was there, Maura Healey was there, the mayor of my hometown, Paul Coogan was there, and it was great, except for the fact that it took like 30 years and tons of money to open up trains where the tracks had already been there. And this is one of my crusades for going forward, that it cost so much and took so long to create this is one of the big problems with the way the government is run these days. Okay, I feel bad for the salamanders and the rare turtles and all that, but one of the reasons it takes 90 minutes, it could have taken 20 minutes less than that, but we had to go around this marsh with these turtles and things. And one of the problems that were happening today, progressives and liberals are the worst about this because they're big into rules and regulations, Jim, and NIMBYism and all these lawsuits about salamanders, and is one of the reasons our infrastructure is falling apart. We have a severe housing crisis and all that.
Why nothing works, to quote Mark Dunkelman.
Nothing works. That's right. And Abundance, which is a new book by Ezra Klein, the progressives really have to weigh the balance of things and say, do we really want to delay this for 30 years and billions of dollars over salamanders? Maybe we can move the salamanders or something like that.
Yeah.
But the last line of this piece, this editorial on the Globe where I got this from, is progressive want voters to place their trust in government to solve problems. They should be the ones leading the charge to dismantle the obstacles in a more effective government. So there you go.
That was beautiful. Can I do mine now?
Yes.
So yesterday we spent the last half hour of the show on a topic near and dear to my heart. Should I sell my Muskmobile? It's Tesla Model 3. Results were inconclusive. But for those in the no Tesla is the only good Tesla camp, I'm here to urge you to feel free to criticize me, even though I bought mine before Musk started his democracy demolition. But be careful if you go to a Tesla protest. Speaking out against Tesla and Musk is fine for now. The First Amendment has not yet been repealed. But any level of vandalism is more of a mistake than it would have even ordinarily been. The Attorney General of the United States, Marjorie, calls it domestic tourism. Donald Trump, part-time Tesla salesman, agrees, saying the vandals could get 20 years in jail. Here's the kicker. Trump went on to say there will be no pardons. So just to be clear, yes to pardons for January 6 rioters, including those who attacked law enforcement, no to pardons for those who attack a car. Now, I'm going to end with a sad story told by satirist Andy Borowitz, who we love, about Musk and his revered Cybertruck. Here's what Andy wrote. Disaster struck on Monday when Doge, after Elon Musk and his team of teenage aides became trapped inside a self-locking Cybertruck. The Doge crew found themselves imprisoned in the vehicle after pulling into the parking lot of the education department, which they had come to dismantle. A frantically screaming Musk received no help from passing education department employees who said they had just been terminated and were no longer available. So that is the end of the very sad story. Be careful when you're protesting the Teslas.
Okay,
I'm done.
Okay, well, I just want to add, Jim, that you're a big progressive. You're a big government guy.
I am a big government guy.
It's your problem. It's your fault that the train is taking 90 minutes to go from Fall River, New Bedford to Boston. You know what I mean?
Jim, why nothing works, Browdy is my middle name.
If you drive in a car and there's no traffic, how long do you think it takes to get from Fall River to Boston?
11 minutes.
50 minutes.
50 minutes.
And it's another 50 minutes.
Well, the train stops, Marty. People get on and off. Do you know how that works?
You know what we should have? We should have a high-speed train.
We won't be having that anytime soon.
Never. We'll all be dead before there's a high-speed train.
Never good for you?
Okay.
How about that?
I'm tongue-tied here. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, the Chancellor from UMass.
Trust by donating your car, truck, or other used vehicle to our vehicle donation program. You'll have more space in the driveway this spring, and you may earn a tax advantage. Learn more at gbh.org/vehicle donation.
Support for GBH comes from you and MIT Federal Credit Union, with memberships open to the general public and serving the financial needs of their members through an array of financial services. To become a member, you can visit mitfcu.org, federally insured by NCUA. And Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure and exists to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Learn more at libertymutual.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on
All anybody seems to be talking about right now, specifically severance, White Lotus, adolescence. Ending today's show, we're opening phone and text lines. Are you watching, still catching up, feeling left out of all the stream subscriptions, or are you simply folding your arms and saying, I don't care? Call or text next on the third hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The White House says President Trump retains confidence in his national security advisor, Mike Waltz. NPR's Frank Ordonez reports the White House is downplaying a revelation that a journalist was included in a group chat discussing U.S. military strike plans.
The national security advisor has been under increasing pressure since raising national security concerns over the incident. According to a report in The Atlantic, Waltz accidentally invited the media outlet's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, into a private group chat of top officials discussing U.S. strikes on the Houthis in Yemen. In a phone interview Tuesday with NBC News, President Trump described the situation as, quote, the only glitch in 2 months, and it turned out not to be a serious one. He added, Michael Waltz has learned a lesson, and he's a good man. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
In a closed-door session on Capitol Hill, the nation's intelligence chiefs are being grilled by lawmakers about the alleged mishandling of U.S. military strike information. Addressing the group chat controversy on NPR's Here and Now, President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, says he's dumbfounded.
It's hard to grasp why any of these people at some point, up to and including the Vice President of the United States, didn't say, by the way, why are we on Signal instead of doing a CIVETS, a secure video telecommunication system capability that most of those people, if not all of them, have on their desktops?
NPR CEO Catherine Mayer is chair of the board of directors for the Signal Foundation, a nonprofit that supports the Signal Messenger app. Venezuela's government says it is working with lawyers in El Salvador to free more than 200 of its citizens sent to a maximum security prison by the United States. Lawyers filed a petition with the Central American country's high court to secure the deportees' release. Here's NPR's Carrie Kahn.
Venezuela's lawyers say they represent 30 of the men deported from the U.S. and held in Salvadoran prisons. Lawyers are asking the Supreme Court's constitutional chamber to compel the Salvadoran government to justify their imprisonment. In their filing, the lawyers say they effectively represent all detained. The U.S. deported 238 Venezuelans more than a week ago and sent them to El Salvador. The White House says the men are all members of a violent gang and invoked a wartime law to quickly deport many of them. Venezuela's lawyers say none of their clients have criminal records. Venezuela's leader, Nicolás Maduro, has been rallying support defending the deportees, who he says were kidnapped. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Rio de Janeiro.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Nasdaq is up 72 points, or nearly 0.5%, at 18,259. The S&P's risen 8, and the Dow is now up 8 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Worcester police say they're taking steps to respond to a federal investigation that found officers use excessive force and engage in inappropriate sexual conduct. As GBH's Sam Turkin reports, police leaders will meet with Worcester City Councilors this evening to discuss changes they've made to department practices.
Chief Paul Saucier says officers are now prohibited from ordering police dogs to bite people at mass gatherings. They're also no longer allowed to invite prostitutes into their cars during undercover operations. The city has already created an independent hotline so people can report any misconduct. Tonight, Worcester City Councilors are expected to discuss creating a civilian oversight board to better monitor the police department. Sam Turkin, GBH News, 89.7.
U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren has weighed in on the Trump administration group chat that discussed airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. This is the one where Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, reported that he was accidentally added to the group chat on Signal. Also on there were senior Trump administration officials, including Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth And Senator Warren took to X yesterday, posting that the situation is blatantly illegal and dangerous beyond belief. A number of Warren's fellow Democrats have called for a hearing to understand how something like this could have happened. In the forecast, mostly sunny, low 50s today, cloudy 35 overnight, cloudy tomorrow, high about 50 degrees, then mostly sunny, low 50s on Thursday. 50 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com. Thank you, /GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. We're joined now by Marcelo Suarez-Orozco, Chancellor of UMass Boston. He assembled a delegation of Massachusetts public officials and others who attended a conference on climate at the Vatican last year and one on AI at the Vatican earlier this month. He is now joining us. Welcome, Vatican Whisperer and Chancellor Suarez-Orozco. It's great to see you.
Wonderful being back, and we miss you. Come back to Columbia Point.
We love that. That was
we had a great
day.
time
We
at
loved
Columbia
great
Point.
times.
But before we get to what's happening here, you told us before we went on the air that you stayed in the Pope's house and you ate there, and tell us what that was like.
So we stay at the Casa Santa Marta, which is his home. Francis is very humble. He doesn't live in the Apostolic Palace. He lives in the Casa Santa Marta, where all the travelers, the guests, the ospiti stay. And that's where we stayed. We stayed there with, just 2 weeks ago, we had the summit on artificial intelligence. And when we had the summit on climate resilience, that's where we stay. His apartment is a humble apartment in the second floor. He comes down and has breakfast and lunch.
Wow.
As I was telling
Jamie.
Trevi? Jamie, no mortadella.
Jamie has a mortadella sweatshirt.
No mortadella in the menu. It's mostly, I'd say, food for my age group. I'd say, those of us over.
Use the adjective you used before we went on the air.
It's mostly geriatric culinary taste.
But you mentioned the Pope has taken a lot of criticism, rightly. He hasn't been as good on the sex scandal as he should have been. But you were talking about how he's tell us about the trans sex workers over there at the Vatican.
Every night they pray for Francis.
Because he invited them for lunch. He said had them up to the Vatican for lunch.
To the Casa Santa Marta, and they've been enormously thankful for his humanity, for his kindness, for the ways in which he humanely acknowledged that they are members of the human family. So every night, trans folk pray for Francis.
And by the way, this is not an arm's length relationship. He eats lunch with them. They bring him they make baked goods and bring him to these beautiful stories.
And which does not make him particularly popular among the more conservative cardinals over there. People make jokes about how he needs a food taster because of some of his positions outside the more conservative wing of the church. Yeah, okay.
So do you have a relationship? You're Argentinian, and he's Argentinian. You're both from Buenos Aires, is that true? Do you have a relationship with him?
So very formal, and I am a member of the Executive Council of the Pontifical Academies. These are the oldest academies in the world, founded by Galileo.
Wow.
Einstein announced to the world that Galileo, of course, invented science, apropos of your previous guess. So it's a it's a very formal relation. We're of different generations. We're both the children of immigrants, so we share an ancestry. And of course, we're both Argentines. And if you know anything about Argentina, you know we are soccer crazy. So the one thing I will advise all of you for when you run into Francis is don't argue with him about soccer.
Okay.
Because he's very set in his ideas. That was a rookie mistake I made very, very early on in our interactions.
We're forewarned. So Bill McKibben, who's a monthly guest on our show, arguably the most important environmentalist in this country, one of the most important in the world, has regularly praised what the Pope has done on the climate front. You've done work with the Vatican and officials here, and the most recent thing that's happening is later this week there's this climate conference. Tell us what's going on, what the purpose is.
We began under his leadership a journey, a global movement to build climate resilience. That began with a summit in the Vatican Gardens, and it's now a unique movement in that it relies on local partners, local leaders, mayors, governors, indigenous leaders, NGOs, for a very powerful and simple reason. The great Tip O'Neill once said, all politics is local. All resilience is local. The issues that live in the building of the resilience vehicles that will protect the citizens of Boston and the citizens of cities across the Commonwealth will depend on the dexterity, the agility of local authorities in the municipalities, having everything they need to get in front of the increasingly wicked shocks climate change is delivering day in and day out.
But they don't have everything they need because the federal government was historically a partner. We all know about the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest federal commitment ever to climate change issues. And obviously we know there's a denier in the White House. There's a guy who's head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, who says he's going to cut the staff at the EPA by 65%. So even if you're right that all climate work is local, without the feds as a partner, what are the prospects of success?
Well, you know, I'm an educator, and as an educator, you have to be optimistic, and you have to be ready to work with the local knowledge, the local practices that can achieve significant results. Federal governments, and this is true in our country, but this is true around the world. Federal governments are retreating from building resilience. This is something that we've noted. This is a team of climate scientists from around the world. My main partner is the climate scientist Ram Ramanathan at the Scripps Institute. We made a judgment, and we decided if we have to make a bet, the bet needs to be on localities, having the resources, having, you know, we took as our point of departure. This is the 300th anniversary of the birth of one of the greatest philosophers the world has ever known, Immanuel Kant. Kant asked three questions at the root of the theory of reason. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? What can I hope for? So this is the question we're asking tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Folk from we're going to have about 300 folk join us from, I think, over 50 different municipalities. What do you need to know now? What do you need to do? And what can you hope for to prepare for climate is wicked in terms of what is bringing our way. And climate, Jim, this is a scientific truth. Climate is color blind. It's not blue, red, purple. Climate, I was a dean at UCLA for 10 years. Let me give you the Hollywood take here. Climate is coming to a neighborhood near you. There is no hiding. There is no hiding. It's red, it's blue, it's purple. All of us will be impacted. Do I wish that we had better leaders in countries like Argentina, in countries like Hungary, in our own country? Yes.
Can real people stream into this thing? Is this available for real people, other than the 300 participants?
The morning panels will all be open, and you're all welcome. Bienvenidos. Mi casa es su casa. You're all invited.
Can we find out? Do you know a web address for this, or should we just find it out before you leave here? We'll get it. Jamie will get it in a second.
To Mr. Mortadella here.
We're talking to the Chancellor of UMass Boston. Can we talk to you about what we talk about every day? The capitulation of Columbia and the bad example it sets for the rest of the higher education community, and particularly in light of the demands that Trump made, many of which were acceded to by the leadership of Columbia. For starters, why is there, we want to know what you think about it, but equally importantly, why are scores of university leaders not standing up in solidarity with other universities, like the 50 under attack for the so-called PhD program? Why is there not more solidarity than some of us think there should be?
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Let me begin with a general reflection. The media's attention has been entirely on the elite institutions, not on the institutions like UMass Boston, not on the colleges and universities that educate over 85% of our students in higher education. So that's the point of departure. The normative experience in our country today is not, I know Columbia is close to your heart. So our students, and that's my priority. My priority is to protect our students, to protect the enormous gains we have made. Our students are working class students. They're Pell students. They're first generation to college students. They are, the concerns they have in their phenomenology of coming in and out of school is very, very different from the concerns of the Columbias of the world. Having said that, let me say something painfully obvious. There is no GPS to guide us through the implications for our universities in this shifting federal landscape. My day starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, okay? And there may be a tweet at 5 o'clock in the morning. Then at 7, there may be a Dear Colleague letter. By 9, there is a press conference. By 11, there is a clarification from the press office. By noon, something else. And by 2, which is my siesta time, by the way, siesta is a medieval term. This is, you know what siesta means? In the medieval times, the day was broken into 6 parts. Siesta is the 6th part of the day. So by siesta time, a federal judge says, not so fast. So in that context, in the context of the rapidity, the kinetic velocity with which these issues unfold, my priority is, first, adhering to the guidance we get from what are the lawful practices that we need to, we are going to adhere to the law. Not to some paper, not to some dear letter, dear colleague. We're going to adhere to the letter of the law. Second, we are working very closely. We are lucky to be in the state of Massachusetts. We're lucky to be in the Commonwealth, where we have an attorney general that has been fearless in the pursuit of legal avenues to, again, the not so fast on matters pertinent to the dear colleague letter, or whatever findings we might find our way. So, first, we're going to adhere to the letter of the law. Second, we're working extremely closely with the Attorney General, with the Governor, with the Cabinet Secretaries on all matters pertinent to how do we protect our students? How do we protect all of the gains that we have made in bringing UMass Boston? I have news for you. You want news? UMass Boston has just been reclassified as an R1 university. That is the highest classification by the Carnegie Foundation for research-intensive schools. So we made enormous gains. You've been in the campus. You see how just gorgeous the campus looks. My priority is to protect my students, working class, Pell students, returning students, vets. How do we protect their day in and day out experiences? How do we give them the world-class education at a very
You're dependent, though, a working-class school or Columbia, you're dependent in some part on federal funds. You're not?
We are dependent on Pell, and we are dependent on
But you got research money, too.
Yes,
Last year, you
yes,
got,
yes.
It's a double no-no. You
Exactly.
not only got research money, you got it for offshore wind, which we
Exactly.
don't believe in anymore either.
Well, we do.
Well, you do, they don't.
Okay,
and they're
they
the ones who write the checks.
Yes.
So explain briefly, if you can, to me, why did you make the distinction about working class universities and colleges that serve working class people if their leaders and their faculty and their students choose to stand up for principle? They're going to be a target, whether they're Yale University or a community college in Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, simply because the day in and day out experiences of our students are very different.
Okay.
And my obligation, I mean, I was a professor across the river. I was a senior professor across the river for many, many years. I was a dean at UCLA for a decade. So these are universities I know very well. They're not my priority. I can't say anything about Columbia that is not banal, that is not stuff that you've already read in the papers.
Fair enough. By the way, can I just say about this conference, it's on the UMass Boston YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/UMass Boston, you'll be able to watch the event happening
And
this
for
week.
people that don't know, you got to really worry about this because you are right on top of the water there at UMass Boston. I mean, you go out there as you're looking right out at the ocean. It's fantastic, but I don't know, about 20 feet between you and some of those buildings. So you got to worry about resiliency.
Exactly.
Is your office in a high floor?
My office is in a high floor, but that is, Morrissey Boulevard is
underwater.
flooded.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I can tell you, I know because the mayor shows up with her boots up to here, trying to navigate. This is the framework we have developed. It's called MAST for Mass.
I love it.
It's mitigation, adaptation, social transformation. This is how we're going to navigate the climate crisis.
We're talking to the Chancellor of UMass Boston.
You're at UMass Boston. You were not at UMass Chan Medical School, but the Globe did a piece about the UMass Chan Medical School talking about that it's very much in the administration's crosshairs. It usually gets $200 million in National Institute of Health grant funding for research, and that's one of the things that President Trump, for reasons that escape me, because I don't know that we want to lose our preeminence in this field in medical research and scientific research to other countries, but they're talking about slashing these reimbursements and overhead costs, so for heat, light, and all that kind of stuff. So that is a concern, not at your school, but at UMass Medical.
Yeah, and it's an exemplary medical school under the leadership of my colleague, Michael Collins. UMass Medical School, the Chang Medical School, has just grown extraordinarily in its ability, in its capacity to serve our Commonwealth.
Yep.
It's an outstanding medical school. It just won another Nobel Prize in medicine.
That's right.
For just the fundamental work on the DNA vaccines. So this is all to say that undermining science and education is a very risky business. The edifice of science is a very fragile edifice, and it's an edifice that is transgenerational, in that the more senior scientists tend to mentor, tend to monitor, tend to scaffold the younger scientists. And breaking that chain will take a long, long time to rebuild. And make no mistake, science is a global enterprise. And scientists will look for opportunities where their craft, their brilliance, their insights are welcome.
Meeting potentially in other countries. That's Victor Ambrose is the guy who just won the Nobel Prize out of the Chan Medical School for Physiology and Medicine. We only have a minute or two left. One of your areas of expertise is immigration. And we talked the other day to Donald Lieberman, who is head of the Civil Liberties Union of New York, and they're one of the organizations representing Mahmoud Khalil. People know his story from Colombia. But there was a statement made by an appellate court judge yesterday about the procedure used by the Trump administration to deport those alleged criminal gang members from Venezuela to El Salvador. Here's what Judge Patricia Millett said in this appeals court hearing yesterday about that act of deportation. Here's the judge.
There were plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act.
This is still under litigation. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemies Act. A number of the people apparently were not members of any gang, and due process that they were entitled to, despite you texters who say they are not, was not given. 65% on a poll the other day to 35 supported what Donald Trump is doing on immigration. How much does that worry you as somebody who spent a significant part of your life on the issue?
I think that the good judge used the key word here, which is procedure. Because what's at stake here is what the great Hannah Arendt, at another time, named as what happens when we lose the right to have rights. So it becomes a slippery slope when some folk no longer have rights. That's what Arendt and so many theorists of the political domain have articulated. Once you start coloring outside the lines of what's procedural in a democratic order, then where do we stop? That's the main concern that the good judge, I think, was articulating.
She did it pretty well. It's wonderful to see you. Good luck with the conference, and we hope you'll come back and see us again soon if we don't get to you first.
Come back to Columbia Point.
I know, we had a great time.
The spring is beautiful.
The
flowers are out, and we will look forward to hosting you again.
We look
Thank
forward
you
to it,
very
too.
much for being
So
with us.
good to see you.
We've
Thank
been
you so
speaking
much.
with Marcelo Suarez-Orozco, the Chancellor of UMass Boston. And if you haven't been to UMass Boston,
It is
it's over in
beautiful.
Columbia Point in Dorchester. It is absolutely a stunning, stunning place. After a quick break, with politics in their current state, are you tuning out the noise there and tuning into your TV set? We're going to open the lines and talk about some of the shows catching our attention in the constant battle of streaming services. Missing out on certain shows because you don't have the right streaming service, or have to hook up with your kids, or having to join and then quit within a month, and remembering to quit within the month so you don't get charged. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, a federal judge in Boston is weighing arguments on the Trump administration's efforts to limit gender designations on passports. And Worcester city leaders are considering new police accountability measures on the heels of a scathing report from the Department of Justice. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7 and streaming online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst, ranked the /1 public university in New England by U.S. News and World Report. You can learn more about research, innovation, and economic impact for the Commonwealth at umass.edu. And Arts Emerson, presenting The Point, intimate discussions on big questions, part of GBH Forum Network, with a conversation about art and accessibility March 27th at 6:30 at Emerson Paramount Center. artsemerson.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marge Regan, Jim Brody, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. There's some great TV shows airing right now. While I struggle to pry my eyes from CNN even for 2 minutes while I'm on the air, we want to dedicate the next part of the show, the last part of the show, to a conversation about the shows that aren't Trump's reality TV presidency 2.0. Severance, for example, on Apple Plus, a sharp critique of our modern workplace culture under large corporations. White Lotus on Max, about rich white people acting like sex-obsessed jerks overseas. Adolescence on Netflix, about a 13-year-old grappling with the harshness of internet culture. It's not exactly escapist TV, but these shows seem to be an escape for people who are having trouble with the real world. Lines are open about these and any shows you're turning into, as long as it isn't the news. And is anyone actually wealthy enough to watch, for example, all three of those shows? They're all on different streaming services. So much for the cost-saving benefits of cord cutting. You're missing out on the cultural moment because you haven't watched. Is the water cooler TV moment dead? So you can talk about binge watching versus weekly watching. Obviously, no spoilers allowed here because a lot of people, I among them, haven't caught up yet with all the TV they want to watch. But what is doing it for you, allowing you to escape even for a moment or two from the reality that a lot of us find to be very painful? 877-301-8970. What's on your list, buddy? You're watching TV these days.
I've been watching White Lotus.
And?
I'm up to, well, I wasn't that crazy about it at the beginning.
Oh.
Because my favorite character, Jennifer Coolidge, was gone.
She's gone, yes.
She was wiped out in White Lotus season 2.
That's not a spoiler alert. If you haven't watched season 2, we can't help you out.
No,
I mean,
can't
it
help
is
you out.
what it is.
She's gone. So White Lotus, there was something a little missing. But now that I'm up to 6,
Ooh.
I am. And the thing about White Lotus is you have to wait till Sunday night.
How do you feel about that?
I like it. I like it because, I mean, how many of us have wound up staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning watching something that kind of you can binge watch, and then it's kind of over. It's done. So this gives you something to look forward to, and I'm dying to know how it ends up. And Christopher Muther was over there at that hotel in Thailand, and a lot of the scenery.
4 seasons. That's
yes, a lot of the scenery over there is really. So I'm watching that. Are you watching Severance?
I am watching Severance.
My kids
I'm
are
still on
watching
season
Severance.
1, though.
They're big, and you know what the
great.
family's name in Severance is?
Egan.
Egan. That's right.
I do know that.
I'm not related. I've been asked.
Can I ask you about your I like them weekly kind of thing?
Yep.
You're a reader. Oh, I'm not that much of a reader. Yes, you are.
Not that much of a reader.
So if I sent you a book, one chapter at a time, and said to you, I'm going to send you another chapter next week, you would say, I don't think so. I want to read this book. If it's good, I want to stay. That's how I feel about television.
But people used to do that in the olden days.
Well, they used to do a lot of things.
They used to have those.
Dickens used to send out one chapter at a time.
That's right.
200 years ago.
And everybody could talk about it, and they could wait till the next chapter, and you had some suspense. I mean, I think it's. I don't like the binging all at once. I mean, I remember watching Broadchurch or something until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Broadchurch, one of the great shows
ever. It was
ever,
really good about these British detectives. Yeah, that was really good. But
what's that woman's name?
I don't know. Olivia something or other.
Olivia something. Yeah, John, are you there for us? Coleman, thank you.
Thank you. She won an Academy Award.
One of the greatest.
Not for that, for something else.
Yes.
But in any case, it's done. You start watching at 7 o'clock, and you're watching until 3 o'clock in the morning. The next morning,
you don't have. By the way, do you know you don't have? I don't know if you're aware.
Yes, but
when they make all the episodes available, it doesn't require you to watch all the episodes.
That's right. But when they're playing the credits for the previous one, and it says episode 3 or 4, and it gives you countdown in the seconds, you sit there and you watch it, and then you're up all night long. So I like waiting from week to week.
Read David in Vermont. It will make your day, Marjorie.
Yeah.
His text.
Watching Boston Public Radio on YouTube is one of my favorite shows, and I'll say this about today. If there ever was an outfit that screams, I need a Dickie.
Thank you very much.
Jim is wearing it today.
Thank you very much.
You know, I like
David,
the purple pants. You can't see the purple pants.
Yeah, they're not purple. They're burgundy, actually.
Burgundy.
They're burgundy.
Okay.
Thank you.
And they match with your orange shoes.
Anonymous texter says, I know you said no spoilers, but Gilligan never gets off the island.
Oh, my God. Who doesn't love Gilligan's Island? I remember that when I was a kid.
I met Bob Denver.
You did?
No.
No, okay.
In any case, I thought I did for a second.
There was that show that I talked about that was out for about 15 years ago. You had to wait every week. Kiefer Sutherland, 24.
24.
I mean, how
you
exciting.
thought it was 21 this morning.
I thought it was 21.
Until you realized
I
we're
got it mixed
24
up
hours
forever,
in a day.
21, you know, it's the clothing store that just closed.
That's not a television
but
show.
24, you waited week to week to week. The Sopranos, you waited week to week to week.
That was a different time. People are used to
that long ago.
The whole premise of this discussion is these TV shows, even the ones that are disturbing, and there are a lot of disturbing ones.
They're very disturbing.
Allow you to escape the much more disturbing real thing. Mm-hmm. And when it's over after 47 minutes, and you say, I got to wait 7 days to get another, it's really, it's a problem.
Okay.
I would suggest binge available things, if that's a term, is the way to go, and just control yourself. And if you don't watch another episode, go to bed and don't watch another episode.
Okay, we're going to play a little clip from Parker Posey.
Oh, good.
Because, not from Parker Posey. This is Parker Posey in White Lotus. You've seen her in other things.
Well, that is Parker Posey.
That's right. And she's talking about her North Carolina accent during a press stop at NBC's The Today Show. Here's Parker Posey from White Lotus.
Yeah.
That twang that she has, how did we develop that?
You know, it starts with the dialogue. There are such funny words in, like I love tsunami, Buddhism, and Mike White is just hilarious. So, when I was working on the Chris Guest movies, this will make you laugh. Chris and I would joke and we'd go, no, and which turned into like, Piper, no.
She's very good in this.
That was a horrible soundbite. Now, let me just
say
this.
It was a horrible soundbite?
She was all, I heard you.
Okay, then why don't you pick the soundbite?
Well, I don't want to pick any soundbites. But can I tell you this?
What?
She was also in one of your and my favorite movies of all time, which is?
Best in Show.
Best in Show.
And she plays the yuppie with the braces on her teeth.
Great.
I think they both had braces, didn't they?
The boyfriend
they
and the husband.
They both had braces. They were so neurotic. They had this dog, and the dog was so neurotic, and they couldn't find the busy bee right before they go on in the Westminster Dog Show, and they're screaming at each other, where's the busy bee? Where's the busy bee? Where's the busy bee?
That's
and
very good.
What does the dog do? The dog attacks the judge in the Westminster Dog Show
funny.
because the dog is made so neurotic by these two neurotic yuppies with their braces on their teeth.
Okay, so what we're looking for is a couple things. One, you come and recommend a show, but you can't just say the name of the show. You have to explain why it's a perfect show for escapism right now. And number two, if you want to comment on the binging versus weekly experience, Marjorie and I are in different places on that. We are welcoming that as well. Do you want to take a call?
Sure. Elizabeth in the car, thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Elizabeth.
What are you laughing at?
Elizabeth, before you go, one of our colleagues said, okay, so far we've spoiled season 2 of White Lotus and Best in Show, the movie. That's true. Sorry, Elizabeth.
You know what word I'm sick of? Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Really,
okay?
are you?
If you don't want things to get spoiled,
don't do it.
Then just watch it fast.
Exactly.
Just sit there and spend
You just said you don't want to watch it fast.
No, I'm not complaining about spoiler alerts.
Okay, fine.
You know, especially when it's from a show. How old is Best in Show? 25 years old?
20, I'd say 25.
I think the spoiler alert statute of limitations.
I also don't think
passed.
the ending is that important in Best in Show. Elizabeth, I'm sorry you had to interrupt us, but thank you very much for your call.
Somebody's complaining. They just started watching season 2 of White Lotus last night. Okay, Elizabeth, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Elizabeth, hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my husband and I don't typically watch news. We read it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been binge watching shows that we enjoyed in the past, like NCIS or MASH.
Yep.
So, and that's what we're doing instead of obsessing on the current events.
Well, you know, one of the beauties of NCIS or MASH is there are tons of episodes. And if you are into reviewing that which you saw, or if you find a great series, a friend of mine never watched The Americans, which I think is 8 seasons long, which is fabulous. To discover something from the past when there are like 100 shows available, because in the old days there were a lot of shows per season, is really great. Elizabeth, that was great. Thank you. I'm sorry Marjorie interrupted you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Elizabeth. I didn't mean to. I was carried
Appreciate
away
it.
with
You
the
were
busy
carried
bee.
away.
You know, somebody just texted in, said one word, bravo. The Real Housewives of the ultimate escape. There's something to giving women in their 40s, 50s, and sometimes 60s agency in our culture, no matter what they're fighting about. I mean, I can get caught up in that. My daughters watch that show. They watch all those dating shows, too, like Blind Dates and stuff like that, where they just talk behind a screen. They don't see each other till the last minute, and they have to get together and decide whether or not to get married.
The Keira Knightley thing, the name of which I can't remember, Dark Bird or something, whatever it was called, was great. That was 6 episodes.
Okay.
And you know what I like, Marjorie, since you asked? I like a show where the episodes are no more than 41 or 42 minutes. What do you think of that?
41 or 42 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Thank you. I
think
appreciate
that's absolutely
it. Well, that's
fine.
right. Black Doves. Thank you,
Okay.
Aiden. Angela in Plainville. We're talking about escapist TV in the era of no escape. Hello there, Angela.
Hello.
Hello.
I have now escaped to YouTube travel shows. I've been all over the world, sometimes twice.
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful.
You mean you've been all over the world on YouTube, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are your favorites, Angela? What are your favorites?
Oh, God. Italy, mostly, I think. And I've been to places I didn't even think about. And Hungary, and oh, my God.
Angela, are you at the bottom of a well in Plainville? Where are you calling us from? Angela, we got to let you go, and it's not, we love what you had to say, but the connection's atrocious, so I'm sorry. We're going to play a little sound from Severance just to get people in the mood. I bet everybody watched Severance, I bet, in the audience. Everybody? No, whoops. Well, not for that. Here's some exposition from season 1. For those who don't know, there's a dystopian, this biotech firm that splits your consciousness. This is not a spoiler. Into 2 people, one who never has to work and one who's condemned to work in this office space where there's no escape as the worker, at least. That's not a good explanation. Here it is anyway. Here's a little sound.
So I'll never leave here.
You'll leave at 5. Well, actually, they stagger our exit, so 5:15. But it won't feel like it, not to this version of you anyway.
Do I have a family?
You'll never know.
And I have no choice.
Well, every time you find yourself here, it's because you chose to come back.
That's Adam Scott, who's terrific in this, by the way. It's a really, and I think they just signed up for season 3 and some such thing. In any case, Ross in a car. You are next on Boston Public Radio. What's your show?
Hey, I think that Xena, Warrior Princess, is one of the greatest things to binge at this current hellscape in our history.
Okay, tell us about it.
Yeah, I don't know about it either. What is it?
Come on. It's the greatest 90s TV show.
It is?
Oh, okay.
6 seasons.
All right.
Come on. You don't know Xena, Warrior Princess?
No, I was asleep during the 90s. But
Oh,
go ahead, what is
Xena.
it?
I've heard of Xena. I forgot the
Yeah.
Warrior Princess part.
Yeah.
I've
Why
heard
is
that.
it so appealing to you there, Ross?
There's light comedy, completely disassociated from what's currently going on.
That's important,
You know,
actually.
there's all these great shows that are currently going on that are highlighting all of the atrocities, all the crazy things that are going on right now. But, you know, every once in a while, you just need something that's funny, light, and just entertaining.
Wait a second. Don't go. I'm looking at Xena, the Warrior Princess.
Yeah.
Wow.
You missed her.
How many
You missed her,
episodes
Jim.
of Xena are, or whatever it's called? How many episodes are there?
Well over 100, and they're about 45 minutes apiece.
There you go, Jim.
I mean, I've been working through it for a little while.
You're all set. You're all
Ross,
set.
thank you.
Lots of people are texting about that show, Adolescence,
Yeah.
which is about this
13-year-old.
murder case involving a child. Excuse me, a young
You
boy, and they
hiccuping
say
there,
it's
or what are
really,
you
I'm
doing?
hiccuping, excuse me.
Yeah.
One texter says, the cinematography in Adolescence creates a tension that I've never experienced in a TV show. It's unbroken, all in one take. The emotion's so palpable, and the spotlight it shines on the dangers of social media is frightening.
Well, here's an anonymous texter I think speaks for a lot of our listeners. During the day between 11 and 2, I often escape to whatever is on TV.
Oh,
And
there
that's-
you go. Huh?
who could blame them? Thank you. Let's go to Tracy.
Oh, listen to this one. I think we all need to binge a great comedy with Jamie, Mr. Mortadella, as the laugh track. His life is giving me life. How about that?
You both have great laughs, actually. You and Jamie both do.
That's right.
Now,
There we go, Jamie.
Tracy wants to talk about a show that is huge that I could never get into. I tried I'm serious. I tried 2 or 3 times. Tracy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Hi. What's your escapism show?
Schitt's Creek. It took me a minute to get into it, but I'm telling you, it is so funny, so heartwarming. It totally takes your mind off on life.
And why is it? Well, it sounds like you and I both had the same problem. Why is it hard the first time to get into the show, and why am I going to get over that?
I think it's because the characters are so obnoxious and unlike relatable in the beginning.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But they become so the way they grow by the end of the show is unbelievable. But it's just also so funny. It's just wonderful.
That sounds great. It's a great recommendation. Tracy, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
You know, Lauren Carhasset says she's watching Reached and Abbott Elementary. I haven't watched Reached, but I have watched Abbott Elementary, which is just on the network.
Wins tons
It's
of
about
awards.
a school in Philadelphia, and it's the lives of the teachers and the principal, and that's really good. It's very funny, really good. Gardner's World on BritBox is fantastic for escaping this political hellscape. We're trapped in tea and tulips for the win, says Aaron in Hopkinton.
Well, I love British drama, and I love all the TV noir, the Scandinavian noir stuff.
Scandi noir.
Scandi noir. The problem, Nordic noir, Scandi noir. The problem is, as I said at the top, it's on a lot of different streaming services, and you got to buy a lot of things unless you are organized enough, which I know one of us at least is not.
Yeah.
I'm not so good at it. Is you do the free deal for a week or two, and you try to watch all the episodes, but then you get stressed out because you're afraid you're not going to get to the end, and then you got to pay. You're going to forget to cancel your service.
Well, that's the problem because you always forget to cancel. Well, at least
Some
I
of
always
us
forget
do,
to
yeah.
cancel it, and then you're stuck paying
That's a very
something for a
sad
long
story.
time. I bought Hulu for Normal People, that show, the Irish show about the teenagers and young adults.
How
And
many
then
years ago was that?
About 5 years ago.
You still have it?
I still have it.
Have you watched it? Anything since?
I watched something else on Hulu, but I forget what it was.
So you've only paid maybe like $500-$600
Well,
for watching
it's
them.
not that much.
Yes, it is.
I wind up with the one with the commercials in it, which is
Oh.
very annoying, but I can't figure out how to get rid of
So
that
it's
one.
only like $400 you spent
maybe
to
about
watch one show.
$400, that's right.
Let's go to Joe.
Normal People was really good, though.
What?
Normal People is
Well, that's
really good.
Joe, you're in the hometown of Marjorie Egan there. Joe from Fall River. Hey there.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys.
Sure.
Listen, the show that I'm hooked on now, which is appointment TV, is The White Lotus. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't find better programming
It's
on
great.
HBO now. I mean, I found myself literally screaming at the television on Sunday night during one of the segments, you know?
Well, you know what I love, Joe, is that they always start out, White Lotus, every season is started out with the crime, right? And then you don't know who did the crime, and you have to spend the next, in this case, 8 seasons trying to figure out who the guilty person is. And I frankly have no idea. Do you, Joe? If you do, don't tell us.
I haven't a clue, and if I did, I wouldn't want to be a spoiler.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Joe, Marjorie wants to know, is Jennifer Coolidge in season 3 of White Lotus?
No, she's not.
If she is, there's a cameo of her maybe dying, and that's about the size of it.
Don't tell us that. Thank you. Joe, thank you.
Oh,
White Lotus,
actually,
I have to say.
they mention her in
They
season
do?
3. Yes, because someone that was involved with her in season 2 is back in season 3.
Yeah,
so
we're
she
not
does
sure what
play-
happened to her is what we're trying to say. We don't know exactly what happened to her.
I already said it.
I know, but hopefully people forgot that because that was like 10 minutes ago.
All right.
She is rather, remember when she was in our studio? You know, we get
Yes.
excited. People ask us, who are the guests you get most excited about and this kind of thing. I have to say Jennifer Coolidge was like in the top 10. Would you not agree?
Oh, my God.
And she was
terrific.
exactly in real life. We assume that was real life. We don't know. Exactly like she is on screen.
Peaky
From Massachusetts,
Blinders,
by the way.
Yes, Peaky Blinders is getting a lot of.
Well, that's that guy Killian, whatever the hell his name is, who won the Academy Award for Oppenheimer.
And
Murphy, thank you.
And
Amy.
here's Margaret in Waltham saying, "My escape is watching Jane Austen films. Takes me to a different time, different country, good behavior. All the scoundrels are ultimately exposed. My favorite is BBC, GBH, Emma. Mr. Knightley is the opposite of all that is wrong with many public figures today. Manners, principles, and respect."
Wow, it's beautifully put.
And then lots of people like West Wing on Max.
Well, actually, our next caller is going to make the case for West Wing.
West
I think.
Wing. Okay, we're
Lori
ready.
and Beverly. Hello, Lori. Welcome.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie.
Hi.
First time, long time.
We love that. Thank you.
So I'm completely dissociated, and instead of watching CNN, I make believe the West Wing is actually the news. So I'm living under the Bartlett administration. It's lovely. There are problems, certainly, but it all seems to get worked out in an hour. People speak to each other across the aisle. It's
great.
Wonderful. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Hey, Lori, did you watch West Wing when it was on before you're watching it?
I did not.
See, is there a show that you watched contemporaneously with its release that you're watching again? And the place I'm going, because I think a lot of people I know are watching West Wing who saw it the first time. I resisted watching The Sopranos, which is my second favorite show ever, because I saw virtually every episode the first time. But someone gave me a season of DVDs a while ago, and I watched it. And not only was it as great, if not better, the second time, you don't even remember all the details. So after a long hiatus, it works. Is there anything you're going back to, or is it all West Wing all the time?
Nope. I break up West Wing with another flashback to Mad Men.
Oh my God, that was great.
Watch contemporaneously,
Yeah.
and now I'm seeing it all over again and noticing all these cool things, and it's great.
That is great. Well, that's a perfect example of what I was talking about. Mad Men, another great one. Obviously, John Hamm and others. Lori, thank you for the call.
We have a bunch of suggestions.
Yep.
Our GBH show, All Creatures Great and Small.
How many people do you know who are watching
love that. It's like the British baking show. And all those beautiful green rolling hills. Everybody's a wonderful person. Then we're getting a lot of Parker Posey fans. Casey from
really
Somerville
talented.
says, Parker Posey is ruthlessly wonderful in Dr. Smith in 3 seasons of the new, highly underrated Netflix series Lost in Space. Parker Posey is also fantastic in The Day Trippers, a testament of her genius. Liev Schreiber, Hope Davis, and Stanley Tucci are also in the cast. And then somebody else said something about Parker Posey, but I can't find it. Oh, here's one. The British version of The Office with Ricky Gervais always lifted my spirits. That was the precursor to The Office that was on, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that.
I think I told you, my younger daughter and I watched the original not Twilight Zone, Twin Peaks.
Oh,
David
God,
Lynch,
that was
right
great.
before he
the
died.
music.
It is hauntingly fabulous. It is really, really And by the way, who was David Lynch's roommate in Harvard Square? He was on the show 2 weeks ago, do you remember? He wrote a book, it's number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Peter Wolf. Oh,
was
yeah.
David Lynch's roommate.
Yeah, that's a terrific book. You will not believe how many people
Number
he met.
5 on the New York Times bestseller list.
It's a great book. A lot of people are talking about The Pit on HBO. It takes place in a real emergency room as far as binge Verzi once a week. Patience is a virtue. Possess it if you can. And she thinks it's terrific. This is Julie from Amesbury who loves it.
Let's go to
Slow Horses. You like that a lot.
Love Slow
Yeah,
Horses.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman is spectacular. Everybody in that is terrific. That's another season that's happening now, too. Molly in West Newbury, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Hi there.
Yes, can't say enough about Adolescence, and the photography was amazing. But Somebody Somewhere is just an amazing with Bridget Everett. It's a little raunchy in parts, but it warms your heart.
You know, I haven't seen it, but I heard Bridget Everett interviewed on NPR about 3 weeks ago. The series just ended, right? Is that what happened?
Yes.
I think.
Yes,
And she was interviewed.
Final season.
Yeah, she was interviewed about its ending. And I'll tell you, I have no idea how great she is in the show. I hear she's great. She was great in real life. It was a fabulous interview.
Molly, may I ask a question about Adolescence? Because it is about a 13-year-old who's allegedly killed a classmate, which is heavy-duty stuff. I'm not spoiling it, Jim.
Okay.
Is it really hard to watch and upsetting or not?
It's hard to watch. It is upsetting, but it's a must-see, and I think it should be taught in schools. I think it should be shown everywhere, and started from two real-life stories that the one actor was discussing, and it's just a tough watch, but much needed.
Yeah,
a lot of people are raving about this.
I think, Molly, it's also that grown-ups not understanding the stuff that goes on in their children's social media, the emojis and the red pilling stuff and all that. Is that part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also sort of broke down, how each person was handling it, from the mother and father, the child, the sister. It had a lot of facets that are just unbelievable.
Hey, Molly, before you go, can you spend I just realized, because a lot of people probably don't know about somebody somewhere, do 30 seconds on what that's about.
She's someone that went back to her hometown. I think her mother had passed, or I think father passed away, and then her mother's in a nursing home, and she's reconnecting with all of her roots in Manhattan, Kansas, which actually is Bridget Everett's hometown. Yeah. And it is just quirky, but very heartwarming, and it touches on your heartstrings in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I heard all those things. Thank you for your recommendation, Molly. We appreciate it.
Here's a good one. Anonymous texter. I genuinely enjoy watching Paw Patrol with my 2- and 4-year-olds.
What is that, dog is a cop kind of thing?
I don't know.
Is your kid like that? No?
Yeah,
he loves it, Jane.
I've been with my little granddaughter watching Bluey.
How old is she now?
She's 3.
Okay.
And just 3.5, just getting into TV. And talk about escapism, watching these kind of fantasy shows.
Do you like that?
I love it. I used to love, that's one of the fun things, is watching TV shows and movies with little kids. I mean, don't you miss that when you had little kids?
Yeah.
Watching all these crazy TV shows with them?
Yeah, I saw Sesame Street a couple thousand times. I did.
Yeah, well, things have moved on from Sesame Street. Daniel Tiger's big now. I don't know if your son likes Daniel Tiger. Huge, Jim. You might not like it.
We have time for one more. Paula and Franklin. Hi there, Paula.
Hi, I just have a recommendation for Marjorie for Hulu.
Yes.
The Bear.
Oh, The Bear. I've seen The Bear. The Bear is really good, although it's a little frantic, too. A little frantic, don't you think,
Well, it's because
Paula?
that's what life in a restaurant apparently is. And it won a lot of awards. And we had the woman on who is the star, who's winning one of the 2 stars, actually.
Yeah, but The Bear's a great
Boston,
show.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You know something?
Paula, thanks.
You know something?
No.
I've taken a lot of grief because not only did I think Paul
24
Weiss
was
went
21.
that Paul Weiss went to talk to President Trump about his law firm getting screwed, and I only discover that not only is Paul Weiss dead, but there's not Mr. Paul and Mr. Weiss.
2 separate people.
Well, Kelly in Austin, Texas, just texted to tell me that one of the hosts of Pod Save America, a big-time podcast, thought Paul Weiss was one guy, too.
Really?
So I'm not the only one,
So why does that make you feel any better?
Because I'm not the only idiot that got it wrong there several times over, and had to be subjected to Brian McGrory telling me he just went to lunch
with him, right? That was pretty funny.
With Paul Weiss. And, Paul Weiss is no longer with us, and he didn't have much to say at the lunch, and Brian had to pick up the check.
You aware the show is no longer with us also?
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on.